Good evening. I'd like to welcome you all to this evening's council meeting. I'd like to extend a special welcome to the family of the late Baron Clinton Davis and Salim Siddiqui, Honorary Freedom of the Borough. I am pleased that you are able to join us this evening. I note that we have a number of residents who are present in the chamber and online who will be participating in this meeting by way of introducing a petition and asking questions of the council. Welcome to you all. A reminder that this meeting is being live streamed, so I'd also like to welcome those members of the public who are watching online. Please ensure that your mobile phones are switched to silent, and you will note there is a particularly packed agenda, so I'm requesting that all members be succinct in their speeches and contributions. So we move to agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Apologies for absence have been received from councillors Lord-at-Scott, Garcia, Gordon, Hayhurst, Levy and Rathbone, and I've received apologies for lateness from Councillor Osden. Councillor Adams, are there any other apologies from the Labour group?
Yes, Councillor Amanda for absence and Councillor for lateness.
Thank you.
Councillor Samuelson.
Thank you, Sam.
Oh, okay.
Councillor Steinberger, are there any other apologies from the Conservative group? Thank you. Agenda item 2, speakers' announcements. It's been such a fantastic last few weeks, and it really is hard to not list all the events one by one. However, we are running strict timings tonight, and we have a very full agenda, so you'll be relieved to hear this will be a brief overview only. I've attended nearly 40 events since taking on the speaker role and overseen 6 citizenship ceremonies. These ceremonies are always one of the highlights of my role as speaker, as it offers the chance to say loud and clear that every new citizen is welcome and appreciated here in Hackney. Credit to all those who help on the day and behind the scenes to make these such a warm and welcoming event. Other highlights have included the incredible Windrush event at the Town Hall with poetry, singing, music and dancing, along with some fantastic food. Thank you to Councillor Williams and all those who worked so hard to make this event. Armed Forces Day was a wonderful display of some of the borough's most diligent citizens, and it is always especially moving to hand over certificates to cadets whose service has gone above and beyond and who really display the Hackney spirit. Attending this year's Pride, along with many colleagues, was especially moving. We sang, we danced, and we stood in solidarity with every member of the Hackney LGBTQI community. I'm incredibly proud to be part of a borough which welcomes and celebrates such diversity as a key strength. Another highlight, and one which as an adoptive parent was especially important to me, was the foster carers celebration event, an evening to say thank you to all our foster carers, social workers and all those involved. Again, a huge well done to all those who worked so hard to make this event such a success. The fundraising for my 3 charities, Hoxton Hall, Ministry of Stories and St Joseph's Hospice, has got off to a great start with a 5K run. Thank you to my fellow running buddies, Councillor Atty, Gordon and Woodley. A very lively quiz event, looking at you, Michael, wherever you are, and a bake-off competition in the parlour. Tomorrow night we'll be having our next event at Yum Yums, and it would be wonderful to have as many of you there as possible. So finally, a brief thank you to everyone for all your support in making these events happen, especially to the ever-patient Jane in the office and my wonderful consort Bernadette, as well as my equally energetic Deputy Speaker. I will now hand over to start the tributes for Baron Clinton Davis. And I will have to log on, I'm afraid, to... Is mine there? It's been printed out. So thank you for joining me to mark the passing of Lord Stanley Clinton Davis, who has died aged 94. I'm particularly pleased to see so many of his family joining us here. May his memory be a blessing to us all. Stanley was born in Hackney Downs in North East London, the only child of Sidney Davis, an East End tailor, and his wife Lily. He went to Hackney Downs School before winning a scholarship to Mercer's School in the City of London, and from there, a place to study law at King's College London. He graduated in 1950 and was admitted as a solicitor in 1953. In 1954, Stanley married Frankie Lucas, a former journalist who became a magistrate, and Lady Clinton Davis survives him, together with their 4 children, Joanna, Henry, Susanna, and Melissa, and other family members who are present this evening. Hackney Freeman Gordon Bell sent his apologies for not being present tonight and his warmest regards to the family. Gordon told me that he first met Stanley in 1968 when he was the mayor of Hackney, and he reminded me about Stamford Hill Library, where there is a plaque bearing Stanley's name. Stanley was a successful lawyer who founded and built a thriving practice of solicitors, and he used both law and politics to try and improve the quality of people's lives and to defend and foster the environment. Stanley was a great supporter of the State of Israel, instrumental in creating Hackney's twinning link with Haifa, and he went on to act as president of the Hackney Anglo-Israel Friendship Association for over 50 years. Over that time, he attended many meetings and aided the association's fundraising for the remarkably clinical staff exchanges they arranged every 2 years between the Rambam Hospital in Haifa, our twin town, and the Homerton Hospital. Haifa have asked me specially to pass on their warmest condolences, noting how Stanley's good name and influence have been of significant assistance to them. He particularly encouraged them in the early years in the organisation of exchanges of counsellors, business teams, sixth formers, war veterans, sports teams, and others who travelled to and from Haifa and Hackney. Stanley joined the Labour Party aged 15, formed the Labour Society at King's College during the heady days of the post-war Attlee government, and joined the Executive Council of the National Association of Labour Student Organisation, a life well lived. I will now invite Mayor Glanville to address the council and take up the story.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you. It's a great honour, albeit tinged with a little sadness, that I rise this evening to offer a few words on behalf of the Council in thanks for the life of Baron Stanley Clinton Davis. And it only adds to your fulsome tribute, and I do so in front of family, former colleagues and friends. Plain Stanley, as he then was, started his political career of over half a century as a councillor here in this chamber in his native London borough of Hackney. He was first elected in 1959, and over the subsequent 5 decades or more, he went on to become one of our most garlanded sons. Stanley chaired the council's welfare committee from 1967 until 1968, and was particularly proud of having introduced provision of continental holidays for disabled people in Hackney. He then became mayor of Hackney from then until 1969, and was proud to sit where you now preside, Madam Speaker, and as we saw earlier, his portrait hangs very proudly outside my office. He fought his first general elections, first for the safe Conservative seat of Portsmouth Langston in 1955, and then in 1959 for Yarmouth, a Tory-held marginal, which he might have won, had it not been for Harold Macmillan's never had it so good triumph. He stood again in Yarmouth in 1964, this time halving the Tory majority, but by now he was ensconced in local politics. And it was very much Yarmouth's loss that was Hackney's gain. Stanley Clinton Davis' election as MP for Hackney Central in 1970 placed him firmly in a line of very significant Hackney politicians. He inherited the seat from Herbert Butler, also a former Hackney councillor and mayor, who had been political agent to Herbert Morrison, who likewise had been a Hackney MP, councillor and mayor. We truly do stand on the shoulder of many giants. In his maiden speech, Mr. Clinton Davis invoked the philosophy of Martin Luther King to call for racial justice, tolerance and equality, Hackney values we continue to uphold today. When Harold Wilson returned as Prime Minister in February 1974, Stanley was appointed to the front bench as the junior trade minister with responsibility for companies, aviation and shipping. He held that post until 1979, attracting national attention as the minister that dealt with the sinking of the super tanker Amoco Cadiz, which caused a major Channel oil spill in 1978. And perhaps this was that led to his lifelong commitment to the environment. He wrote his name into parliamentary history as the first MP to ask a question of Margaret Thatcher after she became Prime Minister in 1979, challenging her on pensions, fuel policy, and her reputed stridency on her first Commons outing. He could also lay claim, Madam Speaker, to having given Michael Heseltine the nickname Tarzan, coining the phrase after a particularly disorderly scene in 1976 when Heseltine had angrily grabbed the Commons mace and waved it in protest at the then Labour government's legislation to nationalise part of the aircraft and shipping industries. It was a tale that I regularly regaled children in my previous role as parliamentary tour guide in 2004, never thinking that I would address that anecdote to his family and step into his footsteps. Then in opposition, Clinton Davis was deputy trade spokesperson, joining the foreign affairs team during Michael Foot's tenure as party leader. He sadly lost his common seat in 1983 when his constituency was abolished, and he failed to be selected for either of the two new Hackney seats, when he was rebuffed by local party left-wingers for having supported Dennis Healey, who had defeated the left's candidate Tony Benn for deputy leader. Perhaps, while much has changed in the years since, some things on the left never do. Stanley returned to the political fray in 1985 as one of two UK European commissioners. He did not secure the development brief as he'd hoped, but he went on to make a considerable impact as a member of the commission headed by Jacques Delors, with responsibility for the environment, transport and nuclear safety. It was here that he drew attention to the extent of pollution in British water caused by sewage and waste disposal, warning that the speed and scale of which this problem was only likely to grow. He repeatedly criticised the Thatcher government's policies on green issues and water pollution, telling the 1988 Labour conference that the UK was the dirty man of Europe. The following year, Thatcher refused to allow his nomination for a second four-year term, and after his return home to the UK, he was appointed to the House of Lords in 1990. Baron Clinton Davis, who hyphenated his surname by deed poll as a peer, was a busy and popular member of the upper house. He was opposition transport spokesperson until 1997, when he returned to the ministerial front bench as Minister of State at the Department of Trade and Industry during Tony Blair's first government. Thereafter, though, he returned to legal practice and stood down as a peer in 2018. But before that, Madam Speaker, I think it's timely, given his history and the barrow of sanctuary motion that comes tonight, that one of his last questions and speeches in the House of Lords attempted to ensure the proper treatment of children in the camps at Calais and to give hope to groups seeking asylum and safety in this country. And he did that time again as MP for Hackney. I'd really like to thank all his family and friends that have joined us physically and virtually tonight. Without them, I know that he would not have been able to serve in the ways that I and you have described. And I'm sure for all of your sense of pride in his achievements, there were moments of personal loss when he wasn't with you at home and he was with us here in the House of Commons, European Commission or Parliament. We in Hackney are incredibly grateful beyond words for his work, commitment to the Labour Party, our borough, to dignity in public life, the people of Hackney, refugees, the Jewish community, the environment and our country. And I think it'd be fair to say we wish a goodbye to Mr. Hackney as he was once known. I'll hand back to you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you so much. I understand that a representative would like to say a few words on behalf of Lady Frances Clinton Davis and the family.
Okay. So, Madam Speaker, Mayor Glanville, Mr. Salim Siddiqui, Mr. Martin Sugarman, Jane Ware, and countless others who are in this room. First of all, a very, very appreciative message from all our family of thanks for organizing what's been a beautiful tribute to our father. Dad, has been mentioned, was really associated with Hackney all his life. An association that was very long and very deep. He was born here. He went to school here. He was a councillor, a mayor, and an MP here. He was a member of the Hackney Rotary Club, and as a lifelong Arsenal fan, he revelled when Rotary meetings were held at the stadium of his beloved team. When Israel emerged from the Six-Day War as a Labour-led pioneering country in which the trade union movement played such an important role in the fledgling state, he was very involved with others in this room, with the association and the twinning with Haifa, as been mentioned already, encouraging exchanges between trade unionists and also exchanges with the Rambam Hospital. And it's lovely to see representatives of the British Friends of the Rambam Medical Center here. He set up his law firm in Mayor Street, just down the road from here, focusing on the rights of those who didn't have a lot of money to defend themselves, focusing on poorly paid legal aid work, the rights of refugees and of tenants. When he was appointed to the House of Lords, he didn't hesitate to call himself Lord Clinton Davis of Hackney. That was very important to him. I didn't know he was known as Mr. Hackney, but to us, he was Mr. Hackney. So he would have really appreciated this celebration today, as we certainly do, surrounded by people on all sides of this room who he would have regarded as his friends and colleagues, whether they knew him or not, who shared a love of Hackney and a desire to contribute to its future. We're very grateful to Jane Ware and to all of you for arranging the most beautiful reception earlier and for your kind and generous words this evening. It's only sad that Dad is not around to hear them. For Mum, however, one occasion stuck very much in her mind. Unfortunately, she had a hospital operation today. She couldn't be here tonight. But my sister Jo is going to just relay one anecdote that she was keen that you should hear. But in the meantime, thank you all very, very much.
I know that you're all incredibly pressed for time, and I will just talk very, very briefly on behalf of my mum. I just have to echo Henry's words. We are so grateful, so touched, and so moved. Mum's undergoing a hospital procedure. Just before I do, one quick word, that we sometimes conflated our parents' names into the single moniker, Stan Fran. My mother is Frankie. So whilst the late, great Tony Bennett may have left his heart in San Fran, Stan Fran's heart was left and remains for all of us in Hackney. And to be honest, give us Hackney any time over and above San Francisco. So I was going to say how close Hackney is to my heart and imbued us all with so much Dad's work, with so much social purpose, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to, it's there, it's given, and it's an incredible borough. And this is the note from my mum, who sadly isn't here, but it is with pride, she says, and of course, mixed emotions that I respond, sadly not in person, to your special invitation to celebrate Stanley's contribution to the borough in which he was raised and in which he felt privileged to serve and which he cherished all his life. Even into the last months of serious disability, he was overjoyed to meet someone who shared his Hackney roots, and having ascertained this, he suddenly found his voice, which had rationed up until this point. This wonderful occasion makes me reflect upon the day in May 1968, when he presided over the council proceedings as mayor for the first time. Hackney had always been, until that week, Labour-controlled, but it became what we would call today a red wall seat at that particular juncture. Stanley had been nominated by the Labour Party to be mayor, but managed to convert that nomination into the reality with the votes of the Labour aldermen, who remained in situ and voted for him. Instead of the inauguration of a new mayor just being a ceremonial formality lasting a short while to which he'd been looking forward, he found himself chairing a contentious political council meeting, which continued until the early hours. Fortunately, he had had some experience in this regard, and as I recall, managed to lighten the tense atmosphere with his flashes of sparkling wit. Prior to departure, in the very early hours of the morning, I made history. I must have been the first mayoress ever to return home in the mayoral car with a bulging bouquet of flowers on one arm, very elegant, and a very inelegant bulging bag of what seemed to be hot off the press bagels on the other. I think no other lady mayoress would have been in that situation. So it's been an immense privilege for Stanley's family to receive this honour on his behalf, and my only sadness is that he's not here to see it, but that is the way. We wish this municipality, its leaders and its citizens every possible good fortune in the year ahead.
As time is pressing, we won't have time for many more speeches and to hear much more. But I did want to see if Councillor Steinberger might like to say a few words.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wasn't going to say anything tonight, but when I came in, I could feel the whole family, the warmth and the generations he set up. And I must say this is the first time since I've come into the council chamber where I do not feel as if we're politicians tonight. It was a different atmosphere in the eating room and everything, you know, whilst there was like, because obviously we're Jewish, there was the kosher food and the whole atmosphere was different. Now, I don't know the whole history about his politics. Obviously, the mayor has said he's obviously been through a lot in politics. I did, however, hear a few things. One was that in Stamford Hill, he made sure, which is in the Jewish area, he made sure to cut open the library, and he was always talking about it, how much it meant for him. So his connection to the community was very, very strong. I'm also very touched by the fact that sitting here tonight, seeing the warmth that is everywhere. And I must also say that apologize from our side that the meeting had to be changed because it's Tisha B'Av, which you'll obviously know the fast day is going to be on Wednesday night and Thursday. And I'm glad you managed to make this change. And I would basically say we would like to send by the Jewish people, we say, may the neshama have an aliyah, which means may the soul rest in peace. So on behalf of us, we would like to send our condolence and basically we're also grieving from this bad loss. So that's all we want to say.
Thank you so much, Councillor Steinberger. I'd like to invite those who are able to please stand with me and observe a minute's silence in memory of Baron Clinton Davis. Thank you so much. Please be seated. I'd sincerely like to thank again the family, friends and guests who have attended this evening. There'll be a brief pause now in proceedings while, if you would like, you may vacate the chamber. Anyone else who wishes to exit the meeting at this time may also do so, and we will now set up for the remainder of the meeting. held on the 17th of May 2023 agreed as a true and accurate recording of proceedings. Agenda item 4, declarations of interest. Members are to note the guidance on declaring interests as set out in the agenda. Are there any declarations of interest relating to any item on the agenda? And if so, could members please declare it now, indicating which item it relates to and the nature of the interest? I also note that the Director of Legal, Democratic and Electoral Services and Monitoring Officer, Dawn Carter MacDonald, the Director, Financial Management, Jackie Moylan, and the Head of Legal and Governance, Louise Humphreys, are declaring interests in respect of agenda item 13. Agenda item 5. You will note that we have a... Oh, apologies, Councillor Steinberger.
Be one of the 17,500 people who signed the petition. And I'm proud of it.
Noted. Thank you, Councillor Steinberger. You will note that we have a petition which has been brought before Council, the details of which are in the front pages of the agenda. I would like to invite the lead petitioner, Ruth Parkinson, alongside Elizabeth Rackie, to address the Council. You will have up to 5 minutes in total to do so, and it is kindly requested that you stick to the allocated timeframes.
Expecting tall people. Is it on? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Do I start now then? The current LTNs were introduced during the COVID-19 emergency under ETOs, which were temporary measures to help social distancing. They seem now to have taken on a different purpose to address 3 major concerns. 1, pollution, 2, road safety, 3, physical inactivity. So I'd like to address each in turn. Pollution. According to your own Air Equality Action Plan, 2015-2019, pollution levels are highest in the most densely built up areas along the borough's busiest roads. Away from the busy main roads, air quality objectives tend to be met. Increasing this is still from the same thing. Increasing road congestion contributes to worsening air pollution, delays vital bus services and freight, and makes many streets unpleasant places to walk and cycle. Schools on main roads in the borough are exposed to higher levels of pollution. Main roads. You knew that pollution wasn't an issue in side roads where LTNs are focused, but main roads, on main roads. You knew that pollution levels were met on side roads, not on main roads. So this deliberate policy to force traffic onto already higher polluted roads is ignoring the effects it has on those using these roads to walk, to go to school, to live on. Quote again, Hackney Emergency Transport Plan for 2020. Public health and safety implications will be profound for those groups already disproportionately impacted upon by secondary effects of motor vehicle use, including those on low incomes, people of minority ethnic backgrounds, the elderly and children. You knew increasing congestion on main roads would lead to higher pollution levels for people living on those roads, for children going to school on those roads, for people walking on those roads. We call this social injustice. Any reduction in nitrous dioxide in LTNs is minimal, whereas main roads and boundary roads have suffered disproportionately. In fact, by making people drive more miles to get to their destinations, both inside and outside LTNs, it actually contributes to pollution. More miles driven, not less, more congestion. Point 2, road safety. From the data from at least 2 different sources, as well as Hackney's own data, side roads are not as unsafe as you seem to be implying. Accidents mainly happen on main roads and at junctions with main roads, not side roads. In fact, data says that closing side roads is actually making main roads more unsafe by adding to the number of accidents recorded. Hackney Council collected accident data showing an increase in accidents on surrounding main roads once you'd implemented your LTNs. It's not side roads where accidents happen, it's main roads. Your policy makes main roads more unsafe, not less. Kingston Road, Mare Street, Dalston Lane, Graham Road, Queensbridge, all increased the number of accidents after implementation of LTNs. I could go on because there's a long list of roads it's impacted on. 3, physical inactivity, a seemingly noble cause, but your policy seems to ignore that 14% of the UK population have mobility issues. Census 2021 Hackney, 1/5 of people living in Hackney have a disability. That's 37,020 people. 16,622 said their disability impacted a lot on daily activities. 1/5 of them reported having difficulties accessing public transport. Many of them rely on vehicles through Mobility's car schemes or blue badges to go to appointments, shop, live their lives. Some rely on buses too. You decided to clamp down on blue badge holders by failing to immediately give universal exemption to all of them. You know who they are because you have records of them all. Blue badges are issued by the council. You have records, so you don't need to do that. You chose to discriminate against them to make their lives more difficult. This is an ableist policy. You have a duty of care under the law to protect
1 minute.
them. LTNs do not help the elderly or disabled. Why are you making them suffer in order to make already able-bodied people walk and cycle a bit more? 17,000 people signed this petition just to get it discussed. It's taken over 2 years and people are still signing it. In the online consultations, 58% of people in the London Fields LTN said they were against it being made permanent. 64% in Hoxton were against. Homerton, 64%. But you went ahead anyway. Failure to listen. We call on you to give immediate universal exemption to all blue badge holders, not just companion badges. Stop using party whip to squash debate. We call on all council members to listen, not just go through the motions. We have legitimate concerns. Stop gaslighting us.
Can I ask you to draw the
Closing
conclusions? Can I ask you to
Closing
draw the
roads is not
speech
the answer
conclusion?
to the real issues facing our borough.
Thank you. Can I ask if members wish to debate the petition? And if so, you'll have up to 10 minutes. I believe there are a few people that would like to speak. Councillor Steinberger.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is such a sad affair to see the way we do things as if it's our roads, as if just we tread on people, we don't care, we don't listen, and we just put in things which, I mean, my journey myself coming to the town hall, since we have LTNs, takes 3 times as much for no reason.
They do the seats so they can hear the debate because they can't hear. Yes, yes.
Absolutely, yes, thank you.
That it took 2 years for this to be debated in full council. This whole LTN business is a load of rubbish. It's one thing, it's to make money and purely money. We've seen wherever you've put LTNs, all you've done is you've caused more pollution, more traffic. Own up and stop looking for another tax. Just cut away these LTNs, let people live and stop coming up with new ideas which you know yourself do not work. Try better games and listen to the people. 17,000 people, 17,000 people is just unbelievable. And yet there's nobody even here to talk to. I just can't understand this. You closed Mount Pleasant. You didn't even know what you were doing there. There was a guy, I forgot what his name was, challenged all the tickets because even your money you couldn't get in order. You didn't even know how to take the money there. So basically this is one thing. This is another tax on the people living in Hackney. You come up with all types of, you made this type of survey, that type of survey. That's all a load of rubbish. How do you know who's in which car and for what? A driver from Peckham could be taking somebody to Homerton Hospital. You're not in the car, you don't know what's going on, and you come up with stupid surveys which makes no sense whatsoever. Like your Keir Starmer said about the ULIS, he told Southern County to stop messing about with it. You see it's not working, try something which works. If you're serious about pollution, try to do something that works, not something that makes more pollution. Because it's very clear the current situation is that there is too much pollution since you started the LTNs. I ask you please to listen to the local people of Hackney. These are...
Thank you, Councillor Steinberger. Thank you so much. We have two other councillors that would wish to speak. I think Councillors Kennedy and Narcross. Can I ask people to listen to one another in the chamber? Democracy is listening to each other in the chamber.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm Councillor Chris Kennedy. I'm the Cabinet Member for Health, and I supported the introduction of the LTNs in 2020 because I believe that they would reduce air pollution in this borough. Thank you, Ruth, and thank you everyone for bringing the petition tonight. It gives us a chance to look at the evidence and see if it has reduced air pollution in the borough. We have, in our papers tonight, and it's there for you to see, item 9 is our update on decarbonisation. On page 73 of our papers tonight, we have the annual status report that gives us some of the readings in our diffusion tubes across the borough for nitrogen dioxide. That's the poisonous gas that comes out of the back of cars. Pages 19 to 20 of that report give 43 readings. 42 out of those 43 readings show lower levels of nitrogen dioxide 2 years after the introduction of LTNs than they did in 2019 before they were introduced.
Can I please ask that we listen to each other within the chamber? Otherwise, we will have to be removed. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, I've referred everyone to exactly where I'm getting this data from. It's in the report in our papers tonight. 42 out of 43 of those tubes. There's a line in a Meatloaf song, isn't there? 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Well, 42 out of 43 is very good. That shows lower air pollution, that's better health for our residents, and that's why I support the LTNs. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I remind people to please listen to each other with civility? We've got a lot to get through this evening. Councillor Narcross.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wasn't a councillor when they introduced the LTNs, but when I first stood for election last year, I was proud to do so for a Labour Party that had made the environment one of its top priorities, committed to delivering a greener, cleaner and healthier Hackney, to cutting carbon emissions, reducing air and noise pollution and making our streets safer for all. A Labour Party that's prepared to take difficult decisions and sometimes unpopular decisions to reduce traffic on our roads. Low traffic neighbourhoods are a vital tool to do that. You just heard from Councillor Kennedy the evidence that supports that position. Traffic on London's residential roads has increased by almost 75% in the last decade or so, meaning more cars on local streets that weren't built to take them. That's more cars, more noise and more pollution. Low traffic neighbourhoods are one of the most effective ways we have to combat this. The evidence shows they work. Across Hackney's largest LTN schemes, we've seen journeys down both inside the schemes and on the boundary roads that surround them too.
Can I please remind people again, last time, that we need to be listening to each other?
So that's thousands of fewer journeys, and that's the reduction in air pollution that comes with it. So that's lowering carbon emissions and helping tackle the climate crisis. I really appreciate the fact you've all come here to make your case, to make your argument, but I do disagree strongly with the demands of this petition. I think if we removed LTNs, it would be a huge step backwards in our borough, a disservice to our residents, and show a lack of leadership when it comes to air quality, congestion, and climate. LTNs do make our streets safer, our cities more livable, and our air more breathable. And when you've got a Tory government committed at best to doing nothing to improve air quality, or at worst, actively campaigning to make things worse, I'm still proud that the authorities like Hackney are leading the way on this issue.
Before I ask Councillor Cockburn to respond, I am going to give a final warning that the room will be cleared unless we are prepared to listen to each other. I realise that there is a strength of feeling here and we appreciate the petition being brought forward, but we need to listen to each other with civility. Councillor Cockburn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I mean, it's difficult to know where to start from given the quite contradictory but also absent sort of contribution from the opposition benches. I mean, look, Madam Speaker, you've only got to look at the horrific, horrifying images from roads this weekend to see why we're taking bold climate action in what happened in roads. And as corporate parents, as we all are, as councillors, tackling pollution shouldn't be a political issue. It's something that all of us owe to future generations to be able to make sure that we're securing their future. I mean, every time I go to visit schools in this borough, the number one things that children always say to me time and time again is better air quality and road safety. But before I do respond to the specifics of the petition, I do want to sort of respond to some of the contributions that have been made from the opposition benches, but also, I mean, the Green Party. I mean, you know, got to be honest with the public about where you stand on this issue. You know, you not just on this, but there's been a whole flow of contradictions since you've joined this council. You wouldn't believe it, but last month they joined the Tories, climate deniers in this borough, arguing against the introduction of motorcycle charges in this borough. To the public, depending on whose door they knock on, they flip-flop. And to what we've heard today, they've said absolutely nothing. The people of Hackney deserve to know, where does the Hackney Green Party stand on this issue? Do you support it or do you not? And then to the Tories, Councillor Steinberg, I mean, where do you even begin to start to respond to Councillor Steinberg? I mean, firstly, it's very difficult to rationalise such bold policy on climate action with a political party in Hackney that doesn't even believe in climate change. But I must say, I do admire, and you know, credit where it's due, I do admire your diplomacy skills on how you've managed to get the Greens to sort of support you in your motion. By the way, you were absent in that scrutiny meeting that you supported as well, which is very consistent with your time here in council.
1 minute, Councillor Cockburn.
The specifics of the petition. I mean, firstly, it's very important to highlight that the petition says very little information and it's very outdated. So I'm going to go through each point on the petition. So the first point on the petition, it says that road closures should be reversed. But to be clear, low traffic neighbourhoods don't close roads. Every road is still accessible in Hackney. I know, but it's true.
Please. This is the time for Councillor Cockburn to respond, not for us to listen to one another.
Indeed, if you go back to the 1970s, you would see a low traffic neighbourhood introduced in the Beauvoir, where there's some fantastic images of children and parents arguing for the closure, for the restriction of traffic. What I would also say is as well, what's really important to note is Hackney's implemented approximately 120 similar traffic filters between 1970s and 2020s. This is not a new phenomenon. On the petition point 2 around the consultation, I mean, well, we've had a consultation. We've had more than 20,000 people responded to the consultation. And the most recent significant scheme in Stoke Newington, more than nearly 60% of public who lives in that area who supported that. But also, we've had the biggest democratic exercise of all since 2020, which was last year's local elections, where the public significantly supported the Hackney Labour.
Can I ask people to stop shouting out, or we will clear the chamber. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to adjourn the meeting. Thank you. Can we be civil? I understand there is a depth of feeling here. I understand that there is a depth of feeling, but if we cannot listen to each other, that is the last warning. I will clear the chamber.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And look, on request 3, they've asked for a meeting with the mayor. The mayor and I have had numerous meetings with actually with all of you here today. We've also had meetings with lots of different community groups and individuals across the borough. We do welcome community involvement, but look, finally, what I would just say in the interest of time is our direction of travel is pretty clear. We set out at the start of the year what we call the traffic reduction plan, Hackney's low traffic plan, the local implementation plan. We set out the direction of travel, which we're going to reduce traffic by a further 15% by 2026. It's a bold plan. It's a plan that's in Hackney Labour's Green New Deal, and it's one that we're going to deliver and not waver on. Thank you.
I am going to allow the Greens a couple of moments to respond, if you would like.
Thank you for bringing us into this conversation. I would just like to say that what Councillor Coburn said there was accusations without evidence about us saying one thing and doing another. We've been very clear that we think LTNs are an important part of the addressing air pollution, traffic, all these other things. Pardon? I just said it's an important tool.
Councillor Coburn, we do need to respect each other, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I think it's important that we have things like smart road pricing. That's one of the issues. I think it's important that we do scrutinise things like those parking charges, because we have auto obesity, we have lots of people in SUVs, and I think it's a good idea for us to, as with a hierarchy of vehicles and transport modes, get people out of their big SUVs and onto, electric motorbikes, which people who in car-free developments are not able to get on-street residential parking for as part of those parking charges. So I think there's things that we need to do more. We'll be addressing more of these issues in response to item 9. And if you want a suggestion from the Green Party about how we can include residents and bring them along with these decisions that we're making, why not look at your own manifesto? And I've got an interest to declare here. I work for an organisation that promotes citizens' assemblies, but use the citizens' assembly, bring people into that, and bring them along in the conversation about how we'll implement these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Binny Lubbock. I'd like to thank the petitioners for coming tonight. I'd like to thank everyone who's joined us. Can members agree to note the receipt of the petition? Thank you. We will draw a line under that. So the petition, so the petition has been debated and it will be moved to the Cabinet, to the Council. No, that's it. That was the debate. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next agenda item. And if Councillor Binny Lubbock, very briefly.
Yeah, I would just like to say, if we're voting on referring this to Cabinet, maybe we could have a recommendation with it, for example, including the Citizens' Assembly that was promised.
No, it's not going to.
We can make
the petition has been debated in accordance. Absolutely. Right, agenda item 6. If people do want to stay for the next agenda items, that's absolutely fine, but if you want to leave as well. Members are to note that questions from members of the public appear in the supplementary agenda. I will call you in turn in the order which the question was received. If you are present in the chamber, please come up to the podium when your name is called. If you're joining us remotely to ask your question, then please make yourself known when your name is called. Anyone who is not present in the chamber or online will receive a written response to their question, which will be included in the minutes of the meeting. Once you've received your response, you will have the opportunity to ask a supplementary question. Any supplementary question must arise directly out of the original question. Please note that the Council's constitution provides for a maximum of 30 minutes for public questions. Any questions that have not been asked at the end of the 30-minute period will receive a written response, which will be recorded. I've been informed that the first question has been withdrawn, so we'll move on to the second question, which is Miss Linda Bowden. Are you present? Linda Bowden? No? Okay. We will be providing a written response to Miss Linda Bowden's question. 6. I should tell you that. Yeah. Apologies. The next question is from Miss Aisha Taylor. If also not here, she will receive a written response. Jasmine Martin, present in the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I advise that since I submitted my question, the illegal migration bill received royal assent on 20th July, so the bill is now statute. The remainder of my question remains the same. How will Hackney continue to support the rights of refugees, migrants and asylum seekers and challenge this abhorrent legislation?
Councillor Williams, will you please respond? And you have up to 5 minutes.
Bear with me. There we go. Sorry about that. I managed to lock my screen. The Illegal Immigration Act passed its final stage in the House of Lords last week and received royal assent just a few days ago, and now it's law. The Act presents a significant barrier to local authority being able to effectively identify and support affected individuals. For most new arrivals in the UK, if they arrived after the 7th of March 2023, the introduction of the bill would mean that their arrival in the UK becomes illegal if they came through an irregular route. These people would be detained with no bail, and the Home Secretary under the bill has a duty to remove them, except in very limited circumstances. This affects anyone who arrives in the UK regularly, regardless of the journey. It will make any asylum application or human rights claim inadmissible. However, it's very rare that the government is able to return people to their country of origin. Currently, the government only has Rwanda as a potential destination to remove people to, and this scheme is currently in the courts, so not active. The council will continue to advocate against the bill and to evidence the detrimental impact on our residents and community, and calling for an end to the hostile environment policies. The majority of our correspondence has been on this very point, including letters to current and former Home Secretaries and Prime Ministers. I have a very long list of letters that we have sent over the years. I'm more than happy to supply you with them. The Mayor has co-signed a letter coordinated by Greenwich regarding refugee removals from hotels, and we are also a co-signatory to a letter re temporary visas for those affected by the Turkey earthquakes. And more recently, we've also written to the current Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, to raise significant concerns regarding the streamlined asylum processing questionnaire. And we've also supported the London Council's letter calling for an urgent meeting on the issue. The council, Hackney Council, has launched a new, and I'm really proud to say, Madam Speaker, that the council has launched a new migrant, refugee and asylum seeker support service recently to support asylum seekers and refugees living in our borough in order to improve the quality of their life of all of our displaced residents while they're here in Hackney and beyond. The service is guided by our anti-racism, dignity and humanity, and aims to support the welfare of all displaced residents, regardless of their immigration status. This new service will improve coordination between services within the council and partners in the NHS to ensure health, education and wellbeing support is in place and done in a way that serves asylum seekers and refugees equitably as far as possible, and that avoids generalizations and re-traumatizing people. It's anticipated that the bill, will make individuals more fearful of engaging with local authority. Through the newly formed service, the council will seek to ensure local authorities and support services
1 minute, please.
are supported and prepared for the impact of the Act, including homelessness organisations. Homelessness and rough sleeping is expected to rise dramatically. And these individuals will have no recourse to public funds, therefore will be unable to seek statutory support from the council. As such, ensuring community and voluntary sector are prepared is going to be a key strand of the work that we do.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Miss Martin, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, Madam Speaker. I've personally seen the impact this country's cruel immigration policy can have on communities in Hackney. Migrant communities make Hackney what it is, but will the council do more to champion those communities and support them to thrive here?
Thank you. Councillor Williams, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Yes, Madam Speaker, and if you're able to stay for the debate later, and if you're not, then please do join online for the discussion of the motion, where we'll be able to talk about some of the work that we have done historically to support migrant, refugee and asylum seeker communities and what we want to do going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I've been informed that Mr. Alan Roberts is not here either, and so he will get a written response. So can I then move to ask Miss Claire Battaglino to ask your question as set out in the agenda?
Can you hear me? Okay, I think some of you know me. I'm a former Hackney and Islington teacher, and I live on what I call a sacrificial road. And my concern as a mother, grandmother, former teacher is about the schools and the school children who are attending school on those main roads. I know a couple of councillors here at the moment have children who are in those schools that I'm talking about. So my question is, despite school streets, which I think most of you know I fully support, at least 30, probably closer to 45, schools and nurseries on roads where LTN traffic has been rerouted face hours of increased traffic, congestion, daytime pollution, and risk of traffic-related accidents. What plans does the council have to decrease the harm and risk of harm for these babies, children, and young people?
Thank you. Councillor Coburn, will you please respond? And you have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Claire, for your important question. It's good to see you again, bringing another question in a different forum. I think firstly, I think it's important to recognise the impact of our school streets in the borough. Very proud that Hackney has the highest number of school streets in London and in the UK, actually, 49 school streets, which is helping tackle toxic air pollution in our borough, helping get more children to take buses, walk and cycle. I think, look, we agree on a very important point, which is obviously that there is too much traffic in Hackney roads, and this, as you rightly said, brings with it air pollution, road danger, noise, obviously contributes to climate change. The Department for Transport estimated that over 250 million miles were driven on Hackney roads in 2021. That's 271 million miles to be precise, which, although is down from 2002, is still too much to where we are right now, especially considering that 2/3 of Hackney households do not have access to a car. The council has a long-standing transport strategy that sets out our approach to addressing the negative impact of the legacy of the 20th century motor vehicle-centric transport planning that we have inherited, and measures to reduce the use of residential roads through traffic that have been part of the council's approach for some time. These are widely regarded as standard parts of the traffic management toolkit. Traffic on main roads in Hackney in 2022, really important point, had fallen by 6% against the pre-pandemic, where elsewhere in the country, traffic had returned. So going back to roof points in the petition, what we have actually seen in Hackney is that low traffic neighbourhoods and all of the school streets that we are introducing, contrary to what's being presented by the petitioners, have had a positive impact on our roads, where we've seen main road traffic reduction of 6%. But I appreciate that when viewed against the drastic improvements that some of the other areas have seen, namely the 50% of the Hackney roads that are now part of Hackney's low traffic neighbourhood network, the main roads will not have benefited as much, and we still need to have a holistic approach, and we are going to bring a plan forward for main roads. And that's why we agreed, as part of the 3-year local implementation plan in January this year, that alongside expanding the low traffic neighbourhoods and school streets plan, we're going to set out to plan to address some of the issues on our main roads. The plan includes 80 other measures to reduce the impact and the harm caused by traffic in the borough by prioritising active transport, contributing to our climate action plan goals for only 5% of trips starting in Hackney to be made by a private car or motorbike by 2023, and aims to promote fairness and to reduce inequalities in the system. But it's one thing to make and have plans, but we have also been delivering. As just a sample of what we've already achieved since the local implementation plan was adopted in January, we, as mentioned, we committed to publishing a dedicated main roads toolkit this year, and we're on track to deliver this plan commitment in September. We committed to completing the borough-wide 20 miles per hour limit coverage, and since January, working with TfL, we have achieved this, which is a fantastic achievement. We've committed to start to work to install new electric vehicle charging points, and since January, we have signed contracts to install 2,000 new electric vehicle charging points, have asked the public to suggest locations, and are on track to deliver the first batch from this year. We've committed to 4 new school streets this year. Since January, we've already implemented one of them, with 3 more in October. We're committed to expanding the cycle hire offer in the borough and are on track to deliver 130 new locations this year. We're committed to providing an opportunity for every child in the borough to learn to ride a bike before finishing primary school. And since January, we've secured £250,000 funding to meet that target this year. We are working with TfL to complete the Dalston to Leabridge cycle route, with works currently ongoing at Leabridge Roundabout and on Leabridge Road, due for completion in the first quarter of 2024. And we've conducted a review of the bus network in Hackney, and we'll be releasing proposals for improvements.
1 minute, Councillor Coe.
Yeah, just winding up now. So these are just some mentions of the many things that we're going to be doing over the next 3 years. But I thank Claire for her question and look forward to continuing engaging with her.
Right. Can I just say?
Can I just pause a moment? You do have a supplementary question.
Sorry?
Do you have a supplementary question?
Well, my question was to the Deputy Mayor who's responsible for schools, and I thought that my question set out very clearly, not really, with support from Natalie, who got it down to 50 words for me, and it was about the impact on schools on main roads. What I heard again from Councillor Coburn is hand-picked, cherry-picked, whatever you want to call it, data that has nothing to do with my question.
Is there a supplementary question?
Tedious. I do have a follow-up question. I did think it was going to be Councillor Bramble. So I wanted to say, over 2 years ago, I gave Councillor Bramble a petition signed by hundreds of parents of children at Mossbourne and Rooftop schools and nursery on Dalston Lane, but still awaiting a response. Who's advocating for those children? Don't their lungs matter? All of our children should be the same.
Is
The
that a
children
question?
in all those schools. And why has Hackney not acted to protect the most vulnerable in our society and commissioned some sort of independent research for inclusive traffic management
Thank you.
that takes into account the lives of those children who tend to be from our ethnic minority and poorer communities? And I just find it shocking that this has been perpetrated by a Labour government.
Councillor Coburn a moment to respond to that.
I mean, let me just start responding to sort of that last point about people of ethnic minority backgrounds. I speak as someone who is part of a black and global majority background, and I'm proud that actually more than 50% of people who live within our low traffic neighbourhoods are people from lower socioeconomic background, including many people from black and global majority backgrounds. I think, Claire, we agree on the mission, which is that we have too much traffic on the streets of Hackney, and actually what we should be doing,
We not be shouting out, or I will have to clear the chamber. We need to listen to one another.
I think we agree on. I think we agree, right? Which is that we've got too much traffic on our roads, and we totally accept. By the way, we're not saying that all of the low traffic neighbourhoods that we've introduced, nor the school streets that we've introduced, are 100% going to be the best thing that's ever happened to this borough. What we are saying is there's a package of interventions that need to happen. That's what the local implementation plan, our journey on helping reduce pollution didn't just start in 2020. As I said, it started in the 1970s. What we've done from car-free development all the way from 20 miles per hour in this borough. And what we want actually, Claire, is we want to work with people, residents like yourself and community groups to really think through solutions. But the reality is that unless we get rid of the vast number of traffic that we have, children in this borough will be suffering from bad stunted lungs.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we not be calling out? We have a hugely packed schedule this evening. If we want to move on now to the next question from Mr. Matthew Allbrow. Present, thank you.
Hi. My name's Matthew Albrow. Does it speak? Yes, you can hear me, great. Can I say hello to Councillor Joe Walker, who's been working with me for the last year to help prepare this and has been meeting with residents and has written to all residents on Bulls Pond Road, which is being very, very badly hit and has been for 3 years now. And we're working hopefully together to come up with some solutions. I'm also the air quality champion for Hackney. I'm currently going through training alongside Newham, Tower Hamlets.
Can I encourage you to ask the
course,
question
yes.
as we have a very packed agenda
course,
this
yes.
evening?
Okay, 50 words. Residents live, walk, cycle, wait for buses, attend schools on Bulls Pond Road. There's still illegally polluted Dalston Lane, Graham Road. What solution with a reasonable time frame will Hackney Council be putting into place to mitigate the additional harm being caused to all residents? The residents living on these roads since the introduction of the LTNs. Big increases on Dalston Lane, 25%.
Thank you for your question. Councillor Coburn, will you please respond when you have up to 5 minutes?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Firstly, thank you to Mr. Albrow for bringing this question. Good to see you again, and obviously your local councillor Joe Walker has obviously been very much on top of this. And obviously we had the meeting with residents recently too, and we are going to be following up on that. I know you've written to me about a meeting in later this year, and I know that we are going to be following up on that meeting too. Look, I think firstly it's important to know that some of the roads that Mr. Albrow mentioned in the question are roads that have always had historically high numbers of traffic, which is exactly the reason why we're setting out our plan in the local implementation plan. The short answer is to your question, and I want to assure you, is that we are treating Bulls Pond Road as a priority, and that's why it was included in the local implementation plan as a result of the hard work that your local council is doing, and also some of the work that you've been doing locally. We know that there's more work that needs to be done on main roads, as I mentioned, and we're on track, hopefully, to be able to publish that in a toolkit in September. It's a commitment that we made earlier this year. We do agree, as I've said to both Claire and to yourself as well, that we do have too much traffic in Hackney, and that we need to work with Transport for London, our neighbouring boroughs, in this case Islington, in relation to Bulls Pond Road, partners and residents, to be able to reduce the overall levels of traffic across the borough. This is a long-term vision that requires longer-term planning, and it would be irresponsible governance to be able to make unfunded promises as an easy answer. Historically, much of the funding for road schemes, especially relating to main road corridors, comes from Transport for London, who are facing incredibly challenging post-pandemic financial situation, thanks to the political football that the Tory government has made of the TfL system. We need to prioritise and make difficult decisions, as we know that we cannot do everything that needs to be done all at the same time. That doesn't mean that we won't do everything, and that's the whole point of the plan, which is to point towards what our future vision looks like. That's why we've conducted a review of traffic on main roads and drafted a toolkit to help with those difficult decisions and to aid us in bidding for funding on our main roads. Until we have secured the funding, I cannot make a commitment on the timeline, but I can say that the initial work is currently underway towards making bids for funding. You have mentioned the impact of LTN as a road, which I'd like to briefly address. We recognise that there are some sections of our road network that have not benefited from low traffic neighbourhoods. And we have to be honest and transparent with residents about this. And when we did make decisions on some of our low traffic neighbourhood schemes, we did commit to further work to actually fixing some of the problems that we've identified. For example, Norfolk Road, Lordship Park in relation to Stoke Newington. And we have probably the most dense network of real-time traffic monitors in the country. You will have seen results for the 3 roads that you mentioned in our initial release in the information of December 22, and we intend to release further data at least annually as part of our transparent reporting.
There are
In the
illegal
traffic
levels of pollution, illegal.
Okay, yeah. And as I say, we want to work with you to be able to address that. In that traffic study, we saw that across Hackney, main road traffic was down by 6% compared to pre-pandemic. That's very different to other boroughs in London, and that's as a result of the action that we've taken in Hackney.
25%
I
increase
ask that
in
you wait
traffic on a
until a
legal road.
supplementary question.
Finally, what I would say is I just want to thank Mr. Oldbrough for his question. He's a very, I know you work very hard for your community on Borspan Road and people living in that area, and it's not right that they have to live with that level of traffic. I think, again, as I said to Claire as well, we share the same ambition around tackling traffic, and we can only do it working together, and I look forward to having that conversation with him.
Thank you. Mr. Oldbrough, do you have a supplementary question? And can I please ask that you keep it to a question? Thank you.
Of course. One thing, why are we counting traffic during the school holidays? If that's going to be the review that Mette has discussed, it's null and void. It's not relevant. Also on Dalston Lane, which has currently illegal levels of pollution, there are not fitting, but as fit for purpose, metro count monitoring next to the traffic lights on Dalston Lane, which happens to have one of the worst polluted roads in Hackney. 25% increase. Something could be done today, which is open some of the main through routes throughout East-West Hackney and solve it
Can I
immediately.
ask that Councillor Coburn's given the opportunity to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Oldbrough, for your follow-up question. I think, look, I'm proud to be leading on this agenda in a borough where we have transparent reporting of data, an extensive network of monitors. The traffic counters, and you asked why we're still counting it during school time. We count it throughout the whole year. So it's not, we don't time pick it throughout the different years. So it's part of our transparent reporting. We do that also with air quality. My colleague, Councillor Kennedy, spoke about air quality. Hackney is the only borough in the whole of London that has a live air quality map where you go onto it and you can actually see that 229 of the 299 air quality monitors in Hackney have reported reductions in nitrogen dioxide levels, demonstrating exactly what we're doing. And in the areas where there has been a reduction, increase, it's only been increased by less than 1%, showing the real-time impact of what we're having. But that is part of our monitoring. And as I said, we want to work with you to make sure that we get Borspan Road right, but also other main roads across the borough as well. So thank you again for your question, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you for attending, Mr. Oldbrough. Dr. Noah Berkstead-Breen has the next question. Please ask your question as set out in the published agenda.
Thank you. Would Hackney Council agree to establish a cross-disciplinary external design panel made up of Hackney residents who have professional experience as sustainability architects and engineers, thereby benefiting from their specific local knowledge, to consider how best to decarbonise housing stock, including the challenging issue of embodied carbon?
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Nicholson, will you please respond? And you have up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. And thank you, Dr. Berkstead-Breen, for your very, very timely question indeed. Thank you. Madam Speaker, and indeed we've had a bit of a flavour of it this evening already. I think we're all hearing the national discourse at the moment, certainly over the last 4 or 5 days, tempting all away from delivering a decarbonised zero emission UK, that somehow climate change can be put on hold for, I quote, a few more years. Now, what I can assure you, Dr. Berkstead-Breen, as indeed has been eloquently articulated by Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Coburn already this evening, I think it's becoming very clear, and I'm sure it will be of no surprise for you to hear, that Hackney is not in the game of waiting for a few more years in anything to do with climate change and actually making our contribution as a borough in challenging climate change and reversing the effects and impacts of climate change. Now, following on from that, what I can sort of hopefully reassure you about is that Hackney has already convened such a group. And that group has actually been in existence since 2014. And it is true to say, Dr. Bursted-Breen, that over that period of time, the nature of that group has evolved as everything around us has changed and evolved. And now, very firmly at the front of its activities, in the way in which it's advising the council, and indeed about what, is very much about decarbonising development as it comes forward in our borough, advising the council in all of its various different service areas on the most appropriate way forward for the decarbonisation of new development going forward. It's called the Hackney Regeneration Design Advisory Group. And as I mentioned, the group's remit has expanded over recent years. It includes architects, but others involved in the development sector as well. So that includes structural engineers, as you would expect, surveyors, landscape architects. The list is quite extensive and indeed is welcomed by the council. It provides that substantive advice. Membership of the advisory group itself, just for your information, is regularly refreshed. And the most recent appointments were made, I understand, in 2021. And that cycle of appointments is crucial in making sure that those skills and experiences and that advice is kept up to date, relevant and pertinent for all of those in the council involved in development, whether it be the council or indeed any of its third sector partners who may be bringing forward development. It is not the only advisory panel in the council. There is another one too, and it is called the Design Review Panel, and that's managed and supported by the planning service itself. And clearly, that is particularly focused on larger scale developments that come forward in the borough, and it advises the planning service on all matters to do with the development, not just decarbonisation, but that forms part of it. And finally, on the delivery, on the back of this advice, the council has recently initiated the implementation phase of its climate action plan, and Councillor Coburn and Councillor Woodley have been at the forefront of bringing this work forward, so that as a council, there is something of substance behind all of these advisory groups and all of this excellent professional advice coming in to deliver in reality. And I would just sort of suggest that one of those projects is definitely worth a visit. Down on Rivington Street in Shoreditch is the Black and White building. It is London's tallest zero carbon building. It has about 51,000 square foot of workspace within it. And that building is an example, which at the moment is being looked at from government level down through to the kind of commercial workspace sector itself. It is an extraordinary kind of development that has been brought forward by a Hackney-based team of architects, very much at the forefront of timber frame construction and net zero carbon developments. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Dr. Bursted-Breen, do you have a supplementary question? Yep.
Thank you very much. To follow on from the embodied carbon, which it's good to hear that you obviously recognise this as a critical issue and a complicated one. Could I ask if the impact of increasing global temperatures has been considered by the council and by this advisory body for its implication on planning laws, for example, in relation to allowing insulation and shutters on the outside of Victorian terraces, often not permitted in conservation areas, just to give one example. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Nicholson, you have 2 minutes to respond to the question. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And again, another very, very relevant and timely question as your follow-up supplementary is. The two things, I briefly mentioned the climate action plan, and that being that kind of particular piece of work that the council owns corporately to realise its objectives and to support the wider community come forward with net zero and decarbonised sort of development and change to lifestyle, as well as to the building urban regeneration, if I may just sort of summarise it with that. Sitting within that, there is a real legislative challenge. And that challenge at the moment is a conflict between what government describe and legislate for behind the brand heritage. And that is as much to do with the conservation area designations falling under that legislation as it is to do with listed buildings. And there is a real dilemma there. There is a real conflict and tension. Now, what I will say is that 80% of planning applications to retrofit what in effect are heritage buildings in the borough have been approved. And that is a good thing. So whether that be to do with double glazing, for example, whether it be to do with solar panels, various interventions into heritage designated buildings across the borough. But there are 20% that have fallen foul of the law as it currently stands. My suggestion is that perhaps we make a joint representation to government and to the new government to come in a year or so's time to ask that actually that heritage legislation that is holding back not just yourself as a resident of Hackney, but everybody across the capital and around the country actually is somehow relaxed, changed, adapted to enable retrofitting to take place in such homes.
This will be the last question. So good evening to Mr. Niall Crowley. Please ask your question as set out in the published agenda.
I'll be brief. Wiston Road is, there's a lot of talk about boundary roads and main roads. Wiston Road is not even a B road, is now the only fully open east-west route between Shoreditch and pretty much Stoke Newington. Since the last traffic counts, 2021, traffic has increased 55%. You keep saying everything's gone down, 55%, your figures. There are now 4,097 extra cars going down past my house every single day.
Can we stick to the question, please?
Yep. These are your figures. Cycling accidents have quadrupled, and I'm a cyclist. Cycling accidents have quadrupled since LTNs. So residents are paying a heavy price for this. I'm sure some people are doing okay, but residents in Wiston and many other roads are paying a heavy price. So I think it's only right that we get to speak. And so will the council agree to scrap the disastrous experiment that is LTNs and work with residents properly for a real equitable and workable solution? Simple question.
Thank you, Mr. Crowley. Councillor Coburn, will you please respond? And can I please ask again members of the public to listen respectfully to the answers?
Firstly, thank you to Mr. Crowley for bringing this question. I should actually just start by noting that Mr. Crowley stood for election many a times on the ticket to against low traffic neighbourhoods, and time again he'd lost that. So
order, please, order, and listening to one another. We listen with an attitude of respect to one another in the chamber this evening. We've got a lot to get through. He is answering the question.
Is it wrong to stand as a resident or something? If you've got something against me standing?
No, I just think it's for the transparency of this meeting to know that.
Well, you play for Barcelona.
So
order, please.
Going back to the question, to Mr. Crowley's question. As I said, we've had obviously countless of consultation on this. But look, firstly, again, we agree, as I said to both Mr. Oberoi and to Claire, that there is too much traffic in Hackney, which is exactly why we're trying to do more work in the borough. When we made the decision to retain the London Fields low traffic neighbourhood, we committed to conducting further analysis and carrying out further engagement with residents to review certain issues. We've been progressing with this work, including a recent consultation to review the hours of the bus gate on Lansdowne Drive, which officers are currently in the process of analysing. We also committed to reviewing the layout and traffic circulation arrangements of the traffic filters in the section between the A10 and Queensbridge Road, and we'll be consulting on alternative arrangements in the autumn that would have an impact on Wiston Road between the A10 and Queensbridge Road. However, we do not intend on removing the low traffic neighbourhood. The LTN was implemented in September 2020 as part of an experiment that was subject to a thorough consultation with over 5,500 responses and a very detailed evaluation leading to a decision to retain the LTN in early 2022. Overall, the experiment was a success with profound benefits to a wider area. For instance, I'm going to give examples how. Air quality improvements when modelled at 147 out of 169
I'm sorry,
locations.
I'm gonna call for order again. Can we please listen to the questions? I will not put up with that inflammatory language in the chamber. I'm sorry. It's not acceptable.
Yeah.
Please resume.
So air quality improvements were modelled at 147 of the 169 location, which showed improvements. Cycling increased on key routes between 11 and 57%. And in a representative poll, a quarter of residents told us that they cycled more as a result of the low traffic neighbourhoods. Overall, east-west traffic inside and outside of the low traffic neighbourhoods was down around London Fields by 11.5%, meaning that the increase on the traffic on this section is lower than the decrease across the wider area. Although we recognise that there are important questions about how we manage our roads fairly and how we ensure that a fair transportation period, that there is uneven distribution of benefits, because we cannot do everything at the same time, and we are setting out to do that. But we need to inform these questions with good quality evidence. This is why we've invested in one of the country's most dense networks of real-time traffic counters and almost 150 air quality monitors in the borough, which we need to use alongside other evidence, such as the publicly available TfL dashboard of road casualties. This is why we've committed to robust ongoing monitoring, as well as further specific review of certain issues and consultation on alternative options. And finally, what I would say is, as part of every low traffic neighbourhood that we did bring forward, we went through a process, and this was very true in the London Fields low traffic neighbourhood, where we published the data around bus waiting times, speed times, around air quality, both within the LTN, on the boundaries of the LTN, on road traffic counts, both within the LTN, on the boundary roads of the LTN. We looked at all of those information before we made that decision final. And of course, as I say, that was published on a regular 6-month basis, which both Mr. Crowley and other residents had access to. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Crowley, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you. Sorry, but what a contemptuous response. Really, what a contemptuous response. We don't deserve representatives like you. But just a quick, modest proposal. If, for example, there's 4,000 extra cars on my road every single day as a result of LTNs. Why don't
it's a supplementary question.
The question is, why don't we let the people who live in London Fields LTN and they drive, why don't we let those people go through the filters, as you like to call them, instead of coming through Dalston Lane and through our streets? That would take thousands of cars off the street every single day. It's not a big ask. You're making our lives hell.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for the supplementary question. It's actually an important question, and actually gives me an opportunity to talk about our exemption policies, what we have exempted and what we continue to consider as part of the our transport strategy moving forward. So firstly, when I first came into my role, and I know from Ruth's sort of presentation earlier, I felt it was the right thing to do. We felt it was the right thing to do to exempt blue badge holders from our bus gates, and we swiftly moved to do that, demonstrating that we're listening to the public in Hackney. In relation to we have
Order,
done that. So
please. Listen.
there are exemptions on 4 bus gates on Stone Church Street, on Downs Road, on Shepherdess Walk, and on Richmond Road. Those are exemptions that all Hackney blue badge holders have access to. Moving specifically to the point that you raised about individual car owners in Hackney, I think firstly it's important to recognise that, as I said earlier, most people in Hackney don't own a car, so a third of households don't have a car. And one of the problems that we have in Hackney, Madam Speaker, is that Hackney is, we want people to visit their family, friends, to shop here, But ultimately, there has to be that fair balance between good air quality. And as a borough that's, surrounded by, the city, the north of London, the east of London, everyone's driving through Hackney to get to where they want to. And more than 40% of traffic neither start or end. One final thing that I would say, and I didn't say this, more than 83% of cars who get a ticket through our penalty charge notices, through the low traffic neighbourhoods filters, are vehicles that are registered outside of Hackney, demonstrating the exact reason why we need low traffic neighbourhoods in Hackney.
Thank you, Councillor Coburn. We have now reached the end of the 30-minute allocated time frame. I'd like to thank members of the public who've submitted questions. Those whose questions were unable to be answered due to insufficient time will receive a written response. Can I invite members of the public in the seats to my left, if you are remaining in the meeting, please to move to the back of the chamber or to the public gallery, as these seats are reserved by the elected members. Thank you. Thank you. We'll now move on to agenda item 7. Questions from members of the public.
Don't stop this from TV. Right? If they try to tell the truth, so they've actually cared about it. But yeah, it's not you, it doesn't actually lose it.
Thank you. That's enough now. Thank you. We would like to continue with the meeting, please. Agenda item 7. Questions from members of the council. The maximum time allocated for this item is 30 minutes. If you are responding to a question, a reminder that you have no more than 5 minutes, and the traffic light system is here to guide you as to when your 1 minute remains and when your time is up. However, please be succinct so that we can get through as many questions as possible. After 30 minutes, any questions not answered will receive a written response, which will also be included in the minutes of this meeting. A reminder that supplementary questions must arise directly out of the original question or the reply, and must not be a speech or a statement. Question 1 from Councillor Binny Lubbock to the Mayor.
Thank you, Speaker. Will the Mayor condemn the Defence and Security Equipment International DSEI arms fair due to take place in East London in September, and make it clear that Hackney is a place of sanctuary and diversity, and that it is abhorrent to host human rights abusers and war profiteers in our city? Thank you.
Mayor Glanville, would you please respond?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Councillor Binny Lubbock, for the question. Just to expand a little bit on your introduction, I understand that the Defence and Security Exhibition International intends to hold their arms fair at Excel London in Newham between the 12th and 15th of September this year, which obviously is borough to our east. The Excel London, where it's hosted, is owned by the Abu Dhabi National Exhibitions Company, and DESI is organised by a private company called Clarion Events, which has been responsible for various arms fairs around the world. Sadly, we expect more than 1,500 companies to take part in the exhibition, attracting 30,000 visitors from all over the world, including military designations, representative police and security departments, alongside private security companies. In terms of whether they're allowed to be there or not, we rely on the government to regulate that. I, though, support the Mayor of London's previously expressed view that London should not be used as a marketplace for the trade of weapons to those countries that contributes to human rights abuses. And while I don't speak for him or the Mayor of Newham, Mayor Fiaz, who's also expressed opposition in real terms in opposing the arms fair and in believing that there is a real risk that commercial considerations will outweigh the ethical ones, and that arms sold at the DESI arms fair may be used for purposes that the council, as in Newham Council, would not support, including human rights abuses by police, security, paramilitary and military forces, which do not have the high standard of human rights protection, and private security companies that are driven purely by commercial interests. And I absolutely echo and continue those words, and I would be very happy to be associated with them. Very clearly, to move on to the second part of your question, Hackney residents come from almost every country in the world. And arms sold at this fair could be used in countries where our neighbours have family and friends, or indeed places where they've already been displaced to Hackney. And our pivotal leadership on the Barrow of Sanctuary this evening, I think, really puts that into stark relief. My only note of caution, Madam Speaker, is that while I do not support the arms fair, I do not condemn the UK arms industry. It would be rank hypocrisy to be in this chamber supporting the Ukrainian fight for freedom and the intrinsic role the UK arms industry has in arming Ukraine and keeping residents safe in Ukraine and ultimately winning their freedom, if we didn't recognise the enormous contribution of the UK arms industry in ensuring that the Ukrainian government, military and people have the arms to defeat the Russian threat. But beyond that, I obviously agree with the sentiments that my other mayors have said and condemn the arms fair. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Vinnie Lovett, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, thank you very much for your answer, Mayor Glanville. And we've seen previously at the Arms Fair, thanks to our Green MP Caroline Lucas, that there have been illegal weapons actually on sale, like cluster munitions and shackles that have been used for human slavery. And I would just like to ask the Mayor whether he could ask the Borough Commander not to send Hackney police officers out of Borough to over-police these peaceful protests in opposition to the Arms Fair, as they did at the, with the coronation at the time when there was serious violence on the streets of Hackney. Thank you.
Thanks,
Please respond.
thanks, Madam Speaker. I will do a lot of things to urge our Borough Commander to do things, but I take my counsel and use that capital around issues that directly impact on the borough. Abstraction, whether it is to coronation policing, whether it's to police the arms fair, whether it's involved in many of the other public order things, is a real problem for Hackney. And both myself and Councillor Jana Thomas absolutely oppose the abstraction of our officers that should be serving our community for these other purposes. But I do what you say in a broader sense around abstraction, rather than singling out individual police operations. And although I wish this borough had more control over its policing, I don't think elected politicians should be making those operational decisions on the ground.
Thank you, Mayor Glanville. Second question from Councillor Walker to the Cabinet Member for Climate Change, Environment and Transport. Councillor Walker, will you please ask your question?
Thank you. As set out, Madam Speaker.
Councillor Coburn, would you please respond?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It feels a bit like PMQs right now. I'm getting all the questions. So no, firstly, let me thank Councillor Walker for his brilliant question on community energy, something that I'm very passionate about and something I was very proud to introduce to this council last year. I mean, you only got to look at the unsustainable energy markets and the climate crisis that's looming, or we're currently actually living through. It's very clear that the current status quo for our energy market simply isn't working, and we need bold new solutions to tackle some of the biggest challenges that we face as a country, and obviously right here in Hackney. And that's where community energy steps in. Community energy means that cheap, clean, renewable energy is produced and owned by the communities and customers who rely on it, giving local people ownership and control of renewables instead of multinational oil and gas companies only interested in making profits. Last year, I was proud to announce a £300,000 community energy fund supporting Hackney's journey to net zero, forming part of the council's plan to tackle the climate crisis and helping residents with their rising energy bills. Work has progressed, colleagues will be glad to know, with Hackney Light and Power Community Energy Fund, which launched last year in autumn. And over the past year, we've already committed to over £250,000, which has been awarded to 14 of Hackney's landmark buildings across the borough, including the Mildmay, the Hackney Empire, and many of our other important buildings in Hackney. The measures for which funding has been awarded will also deliver reduced bills for these buildings, which is really important. And the capital works are already on track, and hopefully they'll be delivered by the autumn of this year. Leaving the question of what's next, which is Councillor Walker's question. So I'm very delighted to inform both Councillor Walker and this chamber that we are going to continue with the Community Energy Fund. Initially, we had put funding behind it through the Section 106 funding, but we are going to carry on supporting the Community Energy Fund, and we want actual financial structure that can make sure it's a long-term project. And the second round will launch in October 2023, providing some certainties to some of those projects that have feasibility studies. Hackney Light and Power has also worked with other local energy groups, like Stokey Energy, a proud councillor from Stoke Newington, to design the next round on funding based on the first round and the learnings from there. As well as developing its own fund, we've also been doing some work across London, but also nationally around some of the thought leadership around Community Energy Fund. And I know that both myself and the Mayor has had extensive engagement with London Community Energy Fund with partners from across London and also England to make sure that we could identify new hubs of funding opportunities and provide support. Within Hackney, there's huge appetite for the community to support local organisations, and we can't talk about what's best for our communities without the input and involvement. Something that is central to the cooperative movement, and I say that as a Labour and Co-op councillor, the Community Energy Fund is a flagship project of this administration in Hackney, and the reality is that we need new energy production system that is cheap, and the only way we're going to get that is by getting the Labour Party in government next year.
Thank you. Councillor Walker, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, and it's fantastic to hear that we have delivered a real flagship manifesto commitment through the Energy Fund. But my question, follow up, is what are your views on the powers and resources local authorities such as Hackney need to further roll out pioneering initiatives like the Hackney Energy Fund to reach our ambitious net zero targets?
Brilliant question, which leads us onto the question about what's next. Councillor Walker is absolutely right. We can't just look at this as an isolated Hackney project. We've got to be ambitious in our plans. And Deputy Mayor Nicholson very eloquently outlined, spoke about some of the fallback actually from government today. Our Prime Minister calling back on our net zero targets and our ambitious net zero targets. That's why I was very, very pleased to hear that the Labour Party, through GB Energy, has committed to £600 million of funding to local authorities through community energy. That's exactly what we've been pioneering in Hackney. We currently don't have a community energy fund in England, and this will be a next step, taking what we're doing to new heights and hopefully unlocking some of the legislative change that we need, particularly around the local electricity bill, something that we've been campaigning for. Of myself and Mayor met with powerful people, and we're committed to doing that. And I'm glad that also our MPs are also supportive of that bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Garbett to please ask your question?
Sorry, as a point of information, can it be noted that the Conservative councillors have left the chamber?
We're not able to note that.
I didn't suggest that it be noted the Conservative councillors have gone to the loo. I just said it should be noted that the Conservative councillors have left the chamber.
I will leave that to other people to decide and to officers to decide, and call on Councillor Garbett to ask her questions to the Mayor.
As set out, thank you.
Is it Councillor Garbett or Councillor No, apology, Pajana. Sorry, apologies, it's Councillor Pajana Thomas.
That's okay. Thanks for your question, Councillor Garbett. Prior to 2016, before my time as lead member, the market service was underperforming financially and operationally. It was requiring a subsidy from the Council General Fund to offset its annual deficit that amounts to approximately 1.1 million annually. The service suffered from a poor reputation among traders and other London authorities. Today, Hackney Council Market Service is recognized as a leading authority on all things related to market and street trading, supporting traders, and now advises other London boroughs, the Mayor of London, and the central government on all matters to do with street trading and street market, and now runs an inclusive and successful operation that supports traders and customers and all at no cost to the council. Since 2016, Councillor Garbett, the council has undergone a process of transforming the market service that began with new leadership and restructuring of the markets team. This led to the successful delivery of the 2016 to 2021 market strategy and a fourfold increase in the number of licensed traders in Hackney. Improved cost control and an uplift in income meant that the council achieved and has gone on to achieve break-even in the market service every year. This extraordinary transformation has been led by Hackney's award-winning market service under the leadership of Deputy Mayor Guy Nicholson. Thanks for a good job, Guy. The team's innovative approach and the good working relationship that it has with traders and traders association has resulted in recognition from the wider market sectors within Hackney, and as a result has won numerous national awards over the last 5 years. Councillor Garbett, under my leadership, Hackney street markets have not only become an increasingly essential and valued part of the community, but now attract in excess of 6 million customers every year, providing to value for money shopping and selling experience to our residents as well as traders. People come from London and further afield to shop at Hackney Street Market and enjoy the diverse cultural and unique shopping experience that Hackney's markets offer. This is in stark contrast to the sad demise of countless town centres and the street market in other places in the UK over the past decade. Councillor Ian Rathbone is the closest that Hackney has to a market champion. He voluntarily takes on this informal role due to his strong enthusiasm for all things Hackney Street Market. And for this, I sincerely thank Councillor Rathbone for promoting and championing all that is good about Hackney Market. Councillor Garbett, a lot of colleagues support their local market that is based in their ward, and that is our approach now. For instance, Councillor Kamadam Steve Race champions Oxton Market. Councillor Chris Kennedy here champions the new Bridge Market in Hackney Week. And Councillor Garbett, in your own ward of Dustin, Councillor Grace Adebayo here champions Ridley Road Market.
1 minute.
This is the approach we are taking moving forward, and I continue to encourage councillor colleagues with markets in their ward to be a champion for those markets. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thanks for your question again, Councillor Garbett.
Thank you. Councillor Garbett, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you. Yeah, I think we all agree that our markets are a huge asset. I don't think that was what my question was asking. I was asking why the champion was previously a formal, committed role as a champion with, you know, the council's kind of weight behind it to speak out for traders. And now it's been demoted and it's kind of, as you described, a bit of an informal role. I'd just like to state that Councillor Rathbone hasn't engaged in the shopping village traders or come to any of the protests that I've been at. So yeah, it's more to do with why it's been kind of demoted from a formal champion to an informal one.
Thanks, Councillor Garbett. The role wasn't demoted. Like I mentioned in my response, the role is an informal role taken over by Councillor Ian Rathbone. And as the lead member, at the moment, I attend market functions, I visit traders in all our markets. Our market, we've got many markets in Hackney. They're not the same. They're different in terms of product, people that visit them, their heritage. So having a champion to champion all our markets is not the approach we are taking. As I mentioned, I'm encouraging councillors to champion the markets in their ward. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I call on Councillor Turbo Deloft to the Cabinet Member for Health, Adult Social Care, Voluntary Sector and Culture?
Thank you, Chair. In the month of the NHS 75th birthday, we recognise that we will not live without its life-saving care. which vitally is free at the point of access. The NHS was created by a Labour government, yet the Tories are doing their best to break it. After 13 years of Tory party underinvestment, we have a mental health service crisis that is seeing a staggering 1.6 million people on waiting lists. How is the council working with the NHS to support residents who are impacted by the crisis and waiting for mental health support in Hackney? Thank you.
Councillor Kennedy, would you respond?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My thanks to Councillor Turbot-Deloff for the question. Madam Speaker, Hackney takes its mental health responsibilities very seriously. That is why one of our 3 priorities in our health and wellbeing strategy is mental health. The public mental health team is currently undertaking a mental health needs assessment so that we can better understand what support people need and develop an appropriate action plan. Areas of focus include waiting times, how the system could be more efficient, and how we can ensure that residents are offered the right type of support when they reach out for the first time. We're very fortunate in Hackney, as Councillor Turbot-Deloff knows, have very many culturally competent community organisations able to provide support to people with mental health issues. From our public health grant, we commission our Wellbeing Network, a collaborative of providers led by the local branch of the mental health charity Mind. The newly recommissioned network prioritises getting those with the greatest need into personal support as quickly as possible, offering a wide range of culturally sensitive expertise. It now includes a one-at-a-time therapy offer and a wider open access offer, which are available to clients on the waiting list for the main service, ensuring that they have timely access to support. This open access offer is available to all residents, including those on waiting lists for other services. It aims to be preventative, reducing demand on services and waiting lists overall. Activities will include peer and community-led initiatives such as walking groups, cooking clubs, coffee meetups, which strengthen social connections and widen support networks. The Council also funds, Madam Speaker, mental health awareness and Making Every Contact Count courses to frontline staff from organisations that support Hackney residents. The former equips attendees with knowledge about mental health and local support that is available, and the latter supports attendees to signpost residents to other services that may benefit them, including financial, employment and housing support, food banks and health services. We're also supporting larger organisations to deliver tailored mental health training to their own workforce and to embed good mental health practices among their teams. The Council is also leading by example with our own approach of making mental health everyone's responsibility, where we aim to help managers take useful action to support the wellbeing needs of their staff. Residents struggling with the cost of living crisis can find it a significant pressure on their mental wellbeing, Madam Speaker, as I think we're all aware. Hackney has established the Money Hub, which supports residents struggling with finances and looking for extra help or advice with the benefit system. For example, how to access free childcare, how to get an advance on universal credit, and how to access one-off food vouchers. So, Madam Speaker, a whole range of support and help for our residents on mental health waiting lists. My thanks to Councillor Turbot-Deloff for the question, but not just for the question, but also for your wonderful, excellent work as mental health champion for the borough. And I very much look forward to some very interesting initiatives that you're bringing forward in the autumn. Thank you.
Councillor Turbot-Deloff, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Councillor Chris Kennedy has responded to what I was going to ask. I just want to add that, yes, as a mental health champion, I'm very pleased to see the efforts of the Council and the Hackney mental health team and officers are making for residents in Hackney. Thank you.
Thank you. We sadly have only time for one more question, which is Councillor Binny Lubbock to the Cabinet Member for Climate Change, Environment and Transport. Please, can you ask your question?
Sorry, Councillor Coban, as written.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Councillor Binny Lubbock, for your question. I think this question provides me with the opportunity to remind Hackney about some of the challenges that we face in Hackney in relation to waste. I mean, ultimately, in short, before I go into detail, the best alternative solution to move away from incineration is a radical level of waste reduction that we all need to embed into our daily lives. and obviously increase recycling. The truth is that the 7 North London boroughs that make up the North London Waste Authority comprise a quarter of London's waste. And as I said earlier, we've got to really think through how we manage our waste. But in the absence of the right legislative change that the government needs to introduce, which they were meant to as part of the environmental bill, it's difficult for us to do much more in Hackney. What we have already done is gone far and beyond very radical policies in the borough in relation to our fortnightly waste collection that has seen an increase of 7% recycling on street properties. We've also heavily invested in our behaviour change team to work with residents as part of that rollout to help make sure that we're helping support residents. But the reality is, even after all of those efforts, where most inner London boroughs average at around 35 to 40% of recycling, there will always be rubbish left over, which leaves the question about what's next. And just to remind this chamber, we've obviously had an incinerator with the North London Waste Authority for the last 50 years. The current one in its current form is obviously falling apart, meaning that we have to spend more money to send waste to incineration in other incinerators, and also not taking into account things like transport emissions of getting the waste to and forth. The reality is that the incinerator in its current form, and a new one that we're currently building, is the best solution possible. Alternatively, the only other options is that you either send it to another incinerator, either in London or somewhere else in the UK. And the reality is there is no other incinerator in London that has the capacity to deal with the level of waste that we're talking about. The current projections talks about 700,000 tons of waste when you look at population growth and population management in London, and there is no other incinerator to do that. So we'll have to do what other parts of London do, if that's the case, which is send the waste 100 miles away to areas in places like Bristol, of other parts of Europe. Indeed, I actually went on a visit to Denmark, and I was actually found out recently that in Denmark they actually import a lot of waste from the UK. That's not what we want to do in Hackney. What we want to do in Hackney is make sure that we do with our waste our own, making sure that we're actually putting money back into Hackney residents' pockets and actually generating energy from that. And the new incinerator that we are building is going to be the most efficient and most world-class incinerator in its form. It's going to be powering 127,000 new homes. 50,000 homes and businesses will also benefit from hot water and heating as well. But we've also seen some of the benefits. The recent windfall payments have shown that any financial payments come back to us rather than instead of going to private companies, which will be the alternatives. And as a result of this, we've invested that money back into helping supporting residents with the cost of living crisis. So look, there's a lot to say about this, but what I would say is that this new incinerator will operate at almost 1,000 times lower than the World Health Organization's limits for particulates. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Binny Lubbock, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, thank you. The incinerator plans, which were made before the declaration of climate emergency, built on the assumption that London will never meet recycling targets, and that doesn't factor in the cost of the emissions trading scheme that will apply to waste incineration and energy generated from waste from 2028. So, however, around half of what goes into the incinerator is widely recyclable or compostable. Given that incinerators with planning permission already put London significantly over capacity, making the Edmonton incinerator potentially redundant, and giving the council a financial interest in increasing the amount of waste in the incinerator processes, isn't it time to pause and reflect so that we can either bring in pre-sorting and halve the size of the facility now, or scrap the plan altogether, and instead of giving the people of Edmonton a toxic facility that will have to import waste from beyond London, we could use the land to extend the Lee Valley Nature Park, for example.
Please respond.
So there's a number of informed sort of comments. I do want to help Councillor Billy Lubbock to help understand the process. So firstly, pausing, reflecting and reviewing would cost Hackney taxpayers £20 million per year, which we're currently not in the process to be asking Hackney taxpayers to be able to pause and reflect to pay £20 million a year for something that has already been reviewed. By the way, the North London Waste Authority, alongside Councillor Chapman, I sit on the board, we published a report which looks at every single alternative method that you can look at dealing with waste. The reality is even if we reach the 65% London target, which we're signed up to and we want to, there's still going to be waste that you're going to have to deal with. And you cannot pretend that waste doesn't exist. And the best form of dealing with it is dealing through the world-class incinerator that we have. Also, I should say as well that the incinerator is going to have carbon capture storage. So some of the particulates and the pollution that we talk about is going to be captured through the carbon capture storage as soon as it's available. And it's interesting because people often cite Denmark as a model to follow. I am wrapping up, Madam Speaker. In my recent interactions with the Danish Energy Agency through London councils, they actually informed me that the incineration is part of their ambitions to reach net zero. And this doesn't negate ultimately, going back to the point that I made earlier, what we have to do is radically think about waste reduction and increased recycling. In the absence of that, the only alternatives that you have is either pay more money to send it to another incinerator to the global south, or you send it to landfill, which is way worse for the planet. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coburn. We have now reached the end of the 30-minute allocated time frame. Those whose questions were unable to be answered due to insufficient time will receive a written response. We now move then to agenda item 8, which is the elected mayor's statement. Mayor Glanville, would you like to make your statement to the council? And you have no more than 10 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's great to be back in the chamber for our first proper full council meeting under your stewardship. And I think you've earned your spurs this evening. At one point, I wondered whether the failed independent candidates would ever vacate the seats that they were never going to be elected to, but you did manage to get them to leave the room. We've got a lot of papers this evening, so I'm going to canter through this quickly. There's much since we last met in March, though, to be proud. And I think just recognising some of your introduction around the people and community organisations, charities and businesses that continue to be a font of inspiration, wisdom and talent, that I think push all of us in this chamber to be more innovative, creative and work better together. From the opening doors to diverse talent celebration last month, which saw stakeholders coming together to address the barriers facing diverse talent in the digital tech industry, led by Councillor Williams, to Hackney's annual Sustainability Day, which many of us took part in, which brought together experts, businesses, residents from across the borough and beyond to learn about how we can contribute to a sustainable future. And I'm sure Councillor Coburn will talk more about that shortly. Hackney, though, no pun intended, is buzzing with ideas and action on climate. We also had Windrush Day, our Brilliance Co-op weekend, as well as diverse representation at Pride. I was going to mention this anyway, but Councillor Coburn provided the link to the incinerator dividend. But last week, we were only able to launch Hackney's Food Poverty and Education Commission report, which is backed up by an extra £300,000 worth of investment, because we have that dividend from owning a public energy from waste centre. It is also matched by £250,000 being reinvested in our poverty reduction work from the same fund. But going back to the report, it is a real opportunity. We fully back the Mayor of London's investment in universal free school primary meals starting in September. The first payment is going to schools, I think, either last week or this week, making sure that they're ready to launch those meals in September. But we, before that happens, came together to say that our school meal system is broken. It was an amazing scrutiny, one-off scrutiny looking at free school meals. And what it showed is what was happening in Hackney schools. So we're going to use this moment, as Deputy Mayor Bramble has outlined before, to look at how we turn around our broken system and deliver what ultimately we all want to see, which is nutritious, sustainable and affordable meals for our children. But I wanted to major this evening, Madam Speaker, on community safety and the work led by our Community Safety Partnership in Councillor Jana Thomas. Critical to our strategic plan is working together for a safer Hackney. And I wanted to update Council on the positive progress we've made in the last 3 years. Crime in Hackney has been reduced by 5.2%, robbery by 24%, burglary by 31%, serious youth violence by 1.4%, and knife crime by nearly 9%. All of those show our commitment to delivering a safer Hackney for our residents and wider community, and it is a cornerstone of our partnership activities. It's critical to how safe our communities feel, and we invest and communicate not just those crime levels, but really getting into working with our communities about tackling crime and the fear of crime. One of the leading themes that came out of our Hackney Young Futures Commission was around a safer future, Too many children and young people spoke about their personal experience of violent crime, including gun and knife and gang crime, fights and ASB that they had witnessed or been a victim of. I think we can only imagine the level of fear, stress and anxiety this creates in anyone, particularly a young person. And we've seen that impact come up time and time again whenever we talk to the community. It's in our discussions with the Youth Parliament, Rise 365, Rise Up East, Hackney Account and many other community organisations. So it's why we built a manifesto based on safer and put it into our strategic plan. And our latest stats talk specifically around that commitment to our young people and a safer Hackney. So not only have we reduced crime, but we've seen 19% fewer young people entering the criminal justice system. So that is an incredible statistic we should be proud of. A 6.1% reduction in young people being the victim of knife crime. And if we turn to our nighttime economy and the licensing paper coming later, a 31% reduction in violence in Shoreditch and a 53% reduction in street robberies. All of that as well without taking our focus on high harm crimes. We've seen a 5% reduction in reported domestic abuse crimes resulting in injury. And also nearly 100% of people that have worked with our domestic abuse service have complemented its work with witnesses and victims and accessibility. This progress wouldn't be possible without our commitment to partnership, both big P and small p, and that includes our council community safety team. But it's also just that wider approach to crime reduction and prevention holistically, which is the other side of this story. And all those statistics I've read out contrast with a failure from national government. We've seen a crime rate across the country rise by 8% in the last 2 years. And since 2010, a 200% increase in violent crime. Contrast that with the 5.2% reduction. It's the same as with the traffic. The country's going in the wrong direction, Hackney's going in the right. It doesn't happen in a vacuum, it doesn't happen by accident. It's a direct consequence of the work that we do here in the borough. As we start to rebuild confidence in policing, and we've continued to tackle crime though, we're under no illusions that trust and confidence is absolutely central, and I will come back to that. But we continue to invest in our innovative gangs unit. We've put over £5 million into that resource, which brings together police and the probation service and our partners, as well as the enforcement service and Hackney Knights accreditation scheme. We've also taken some really practical steps. So we're rolling out bleed kits and training on bleed kits to our community wardens. We continue to invest in the expansion of CCTV. That sits alongside our wider commitment to over £80 million to support children and families across their work. I was really struck when we were on a march against knife crime a couple of weekends ago, organised by families who've been affected by knife crime. Just the sheer impact of losing a loved one to knife crime and why this work is so important. Many of the mums that I marched with that day with people in this room, I had personally been with in the immediate aftermath of them losing a loved one. I'm very gratified that what felt like a monthly incident in 2017, 18 and 19, that I haven't had to do that since the pandemic. I'm not complacent. It could be happening to somebody this very evening. But we will continue to make sure that we invest in that work and listening to our communities about what they want to see in terms of a response to knife crime and violent crime. And it is that grassroots organisation, people like the Crib, people like Postcode Parents, the Charlie Burns Foundation, Hackney Quest, all those organisations that we marched with, but also had the confidence to stand with Councillor Jana Thomas and I. This weekend, though, was a timely reminder of what happens when a community loses confidence in the police. It was 6 years since the tragic death of Rashan Charles. It shook our communities, it shook young people, it led to unrest, and I think it started the really recent decline in trust and confidence in policing in Hackney, especially from Black and global majority people. And it really started our refocused work around trust and confidence in policing. So it's absolutely right that Councillor Jana Thomas and I released a statement on that 6th anniversary. We'll have also seen in recent days videos shared on social media of over-policing, that terrible image of a mum and her son. And we know that there have been incidences in Hackney over the last couple of days, which again colleagues are working to address. But we're fundamentally committed to that journey on trust and confidence in policing. And we've seen real progress. Our response to the horrific child queue incident was holistic, and it was comprehensive, and it was anchored in our anti-racism action plan. And for the first time, when we got that update report, and I pay tribute to the work of scrutiny in this as well, but the first time we got an update report where it had a local borough commander accepting and welcoming the need for his officers to adopt a child-centred approach to policing, and to the calls at the very top of the Met to recognise and accept the flaws of racism embedded in the policing system.
1 minute,
I
please.
wholeheartedly agree with his statement that the real and lasting change will only happen when that acknowledgement continues. We've launched, with the support of MOPAC, the first in London trust and confidence building scrutiny panel that represents our communities. MOPAC has backed us on that, and I think it will be a true model if we're to see Turnaround Plus really play out what we delivered. The last point I was going to make, Madam Speaker, is on the third day after the police updated their action plan, we did have Sir Mark Rowley come to Hackney as part of our continued community conversations, meeting young people, meeting residents in our communities. It was a real powerful statement to how seriously winning back trust and confidence is to him and coming to our borough within that first week. We know the journey to have a truly anti-racist, anti-misogynistic and anti-homophobic police service is, and we will continue to fight that cause in this chamber and beyond. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Councillor Steinberger, would you like to respond? You have no more than 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It was very interesting, actually, when I came in now. I still trying to find out what I missed, actually. When I came in, there was some kind of cheering going on. Obviously, everybody wants to hear what I have to say. I was a bit shocked, and this has happened already some time ago, but we haven't mentioned it in the chamber. Diana Abbott's wording, what she's been talking about lately. And it's been very quiet. Nobody's mentioned a word about it. And funny enough, there was again a Labour MP pulling Jeremy Corbyn into some kind of meeting and having him there in discussions. I don't know what way this Labour Party is going, but it looks like they haven't learned from previous things which they've done in the past. What I do wanted to mention, which is quite similar, in fact, we had last week an inspector's report of a school, above the school in Emma's Park, and the council imposed 28 conditions. 28 conditions on the school, when prior to that it's been a club. I used to be scared to go past it before that school. It was like till all hours in the morning, I don't know what was going on there. And to impose 28 conditions and not to try and work with a local school who were trying to get their school together is shocking. I mean, what the inspector said, if you read that report, it's really damning. It's really unacceptable. I'm shocked to see such a report. And I hope we're going to learn lessons from that because, you know, yes, it's not easy to have a school next door to you, but what was there before? What was there before that school? Now, I can't understand this whole business with generally planning. It's been very, the whole time has issued with schools and with synagogues. Today we had here the LTN, the people coming here and obviously raising their concerns. What really talked to me was, it changed from talking about the LTNs into politics. You're this party, you're that party, you're the other party, what the Greens are, and this wasn't about that. This was about residents coming to talk about their issues. And I really don't think they were answered any questions to what they had. And I'm very concerned because every time we have a debate, we had the same thing. Residents came from Brownlow Road. They still haven't been sorted. They've been here 3 years ago. They still have not been sorted. They're still calling me up. I'm not the councillor. There's still people calling me up. So I'm very concerned. I'll also talk a little bit, two things. First of all, we had now a little merry-go-round which obviously 13.1 will talk later on about the how Ian was going away. But besides here, half of you sitting here part of the merry-go-round. So I wanted to first of all congratulate Dawn on becoming acting chief executive, and I wish you luck, and it's nice to see that. And Lewis on taking over the legal, and obviously I also want to Jackie Moyle for taking over Ian's job. I'm sure you'll all do a great job, and most of you have been partly or working in that department. So I wish you all luck, and we're looking forward as an opposition to working with you also. I just wanted to also take up the main topic you mentioned tonight about crime. I don't know if we live in the same borough. I wish you were right with all these figures. I keep on hearing figures, whether it's by the LTN, whether it's police. I see every day in my area crime which is going on, which I never used to see. I don't know where this reduction is coming from. I really can't understand it. In fact, I would ask, are there any figures where crime is actually going up? Because we have a trend that every night, literally, they're stealing Toyotas, Volvos, and it's going on a daily basis. I don't know where you're getting your figures from. And I worry the same with the LTN figures. You know, you say figures, some people are, I'll just give you small examples. Some people here with cars are here to visit their parents. They could be living in Basildon, they could be living in Australia. They still have to be here to visit their old mum. Some people are here to take people.
1 minute, please, Councillor
I really don't know
Steinberger.
where you're mushing around all these figures from. And lastly, I would say, I would like to congratulate Susan Hall for becoming our candidate for to challenge Sadiq Khan. She's actually said she's going to look after not just the normal, the general schools in meals. She will also see what she can do about the private schools. So there's been very little here for the children for the private schools, and she's promised that she will actually look after the private schools also, and she will bring back the 30 miles per hour on the main road, which is important.
Thank you, Councillor Steinberger.
Not have any more LTN, which is all great stuff. And with all your statistics we heard
Thank
tonight,
you.
I just hope that she wins, because this place is becoming a
Time,
mess, to
please.
say the least.
Thank you very much. Can I call Councillor Garbett? Do you wish to respond? And you have also no more than 5 minutes.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, so just to pick up on a few of the other events that have happened over the last few months, so we'd like to congratulate the council on achieving all the green flags for your green spaces, much loved by Hackney residents. Oh, well. But we must ensure they're protected. There are concerns being raised by residents about some of the proposals for the parks, for example, in the market strategy, which would impact on the biodiversity in these precious green spaces. As already been mentioned this evening, we've seen global temperature records being broken multiple times over the past few weeks. Soaring temperatures and fires like the one in Rhodes in Greece are disastrous for people's lives, livelihood, as well as the agriculture that we depend on here for our food. And the climate crisis isn't something that's far off and in the future. It's here and it's impacting us now. We know that those on the other side of the chamber think that a Labour government is needed to address the inequalities and injustices experienced by Hackney residents and those around the world. But I'm becoming increasingly concerned by the Labour rowing back on life-changing and essential policies, such as slashing climate commitments, wobbling on the London-wise ULEZ, and sticking with the two-child benefit cap, keeping children in poverty. This is disappointing and will have consequences for people here in Hackney. The last Labour government also took us into 2 disastrous oil wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, the impacts of these still being felt today. So the repeated frame of things will get better are starting to ring hollow. We've been continuing to offer solidarity to striking workers over the last couple of months who get ongoing support from the Greens, such as healthcare workers, teaching staff, as well as independent workers like cycling instructors. And we oppose the moves to close the staffed train ticket offices. Last week, I joined the BBC radio workers striking to challenge the cuts to local radio, such an important public broadcast being the voice of local residents and particularly key in holding politicians to account. We know that trust in politicians in this country is at an all-time low, with recent studies finding only 6% of public fully trusting politicians. We've spoken here before about issues with low voter turnout and people feeling unsupported by politicians. And I'm sure I speak for everyone here that we find that heartbreaking, which is why, as holders of public office, it is of utmost importance that we conduct ourselves in line with the 7 principles of public life, known as the Nolan Principles, which include principles of accountability, openness, and honesty. We pride ourselves on being a council that takes safeguarding seriously. And Mayor, you were just talking about your commitment to your safer principle within your manifesto. So we need to ensure that safeguarding and welfare checks are carried out after every safeguarding situation. To not do so puts our community at risk, underlines the community's commitment to safety of residents, and shatters our credibility. I take my role as leader of the opposition incredibly seriously and have a duty to raise the concerns of residents who approach us as a Green Group. Residents have the right to understand the process that has been followed. This must include transparency in terms of how issues have been handled by the Labour Group and by the Council, and it is the Council's duty to be honest or risk the perception of its integrity, which is why I invite the Mayor to provide reassurance to residents that there will be an independent investigation to confirm who knew what, when, as well as what actions have been taken to safeguard and support the welfare of residents, officers and councillors in light of the raid and arrest of ex-councillor Dewey, who has now pleaded guilty to serious offences. I understand that local press and colleagues across the
Inappropriate questioning. Can we please just focus on the rest of the speech?
Okay, yeah, I'm finished. Thank you. We're here to scrutinise and raise the questions that have been raised to us, and that's what I'm doing here this evening.
Thank you. Can I ask Mayor Glanville, would you like to exercise your right of reply? And you have no more than 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, starting with Councillor Steinberger, you had a lot in there that you claimed were serious issues, but actually it was dominated by gossip and hearsay. And to criticise figures and facts, I think goes to the heart of the modern Conservative Party. You're not an evidence-based party whatsoever, whether you're in this chamber, in national government, or Susan Hall. I'm so pleased that Assembly Member Moima is here, because she knows the damage that Susan Hall does at City Hall, the type of politics that she represents, and the unseriousness at which she takes the big issues here in London. You cannot be a serious politician if you say that you're going to remove LTNs that you don't have any control over, and that's what she has said. She wants to roll back on ULEZ, and I'm really proud that I've been a supporter of ULEZ and supporter of implementing not just the congestion charge, but ULEZ ultra-low emission streets from 2014, when I stood on a platform to tackle air pollution in Hoxton West with Councillor Williams and Councillor Mackenzie, and it's been continued by Councillor Maxwell since I left. And one of the things we did not hear in the ranting and ravings from the campaigners earlier was the impact of traffic in our poorest neighbourhoods. I heard someone shout that our LTNs had 60% car ownership. Tell that to the people of Wenlock Barn Estate in Hoxton West that had to put up with being on the edge of the congestion zone, then on the edge of the ULEZ, and then didn't see expansion until we campaigned for it. You have fought in this chamber as a Tory party against any measure to control private car use. You do not care about the children of this borough, and you do not care about air pollution in this borough. And you brought up schools again. I am not the planning authority of this council. I do not control it. I'm sure that Councillor Nicholson heard what you had to say. I'm sure he'll reflect on it in how that school decision was taken. But I would say he has tirelessly looked at how to deliver community infrastructure in Stamford Hill through the Area Action Plan, and looking at where we can site our schools in a way that delivers schools and community infrastructure, but also looks at the wider impact of the community and the siting of those places. And there's people in this room that have been part of that. I know that there are spikes in crime. I'm part of WhatsApp groups, I'm part of Twitter, I look at the Shom Room, and Councillor Jana Thomas knows that there is an impact of car crime in Stamford Hill. The police have taken that very seriously. There was a spike in car crime in Hackney Wick, and they're focused on that, building that close relationship with the community to tackle that work. The reason that we stand in this chamber on the side of LTNs, on ULEZ, and tackling private car ownership is because of the sheer impact it has on the children and families of this borough. And I make no apology for doing that. And I look forward to taking that debate to Susan Hall and others. And it's not been exactly a stellar field, has it, in the Tory party. On our green flags, absolutely fantastic achievement, 29 green flags. 9 more than when I was first elected mayor, as I tweeted at the weekend, and we've never lost a green flag while we've had this administration. I do not accept that the Labour Party is backtracking on climate, and we're certainly not backing down in this chamber. We continue to seek to influence national policy. We've heard from Councillor Coban very powerfully where we stand on community energy, and we need to get that 28 billion invested in retrofit and climate action, and I'm full square behind that. On striking workers, we've all been involved in those campaigns, and I was one of the first elected people in this country to sign a letter to the BBC saying how important the BBC radio networks are across this country for political accountability.
1 minute, please.
Thank you. The Nolan principles mean a huge amount to me, and no action have I ever taken as mayor has ever put the safeguarding of anyone in this council, in our community or beyond at risk. That is all I'm going to say on the matter.
Thank you, everyone. We will now move on to agenda item 9. I do hope Councillor Coban has had a drink of water at this stage, because we will be hearing again from Councillor Coban, Cabinet Member for Climate Change, Environment and Transport, to introduce the report, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I mean, it's been a great first meeting for you, seeing me with my friend this time. Look, I think, as mentioned in this meeting, I think you only have to look at the horrifying images that emerged from roads this weekend to understand that we cannot divert and delay when it comes to taking bold climate action. It's really depressing when you see the Prime Minister today rolling back on our net zero ambitions and actually trying to use it actually as a way to fill culture wars when actually children, millions of people around the world who are currently living with the impacts of climate change are massively dependent on nations like the UK to take action. And we know that people here in Hackney do too. Like them in Hackney, we're moving forward with climate, tackling the climate crisis as a top priority, because for us, it's also an issue of social justice. The rise of energy bills fueled by the unsustainable energy markets, bad air quality that we've been talking about today, to increase in food prices are already impacting thousands of families here in Hackney. Not least to mention the fact that we're seeing record temperatures on our planet, and even fires that we saw here in London last year, scenes that we thought we would never ever be able to see, we would never see in places like London. Look, I think we obviously have to bring this report every year as part of our climate emergency commitment in the 2019 motion that we put forward. And I'm really proud that since we since last year, we have actually brought forward the net zero target to 2030, and actually recognising the urgency required and signing up to the UK 100 pledge, which is really important. We've also published our climate action plan after a year of engagement and consultation with the public that sets out our plan to reach net zero by 2030. It's the strategic framework that really brings together sort of some of what Councillor Nicholson was describing around really making sure that we're setting out action across 5 different areas, which include adaptation, buildings, transport, consumption, and environmental quality, but also backed up by other key strategies led by my colleague Councillor Woodley on the local nature recovery plan, but also on the green infrastructure strategy, as well as the air quality action plan, the transport strategy. There are lots of strategies that really come together as part of what we're trying to do. It sets out how businesses and institutions can really work together around the climate crisis. And I think it's really important for the Chamber to understand that this isn't just a Hackney climate action plan, Hackney Council climate action plan. It's a plan for everyone. It's a plan for all of us to really think through about how we live our daily lives and what we can do to contribute to reaching our objectives. There's lots to say in the report. I think one of the key things that the Chamber needs to note in the report is the implementation plan as part of that's going to be backed up by the climate action plan, and that's really important because what the implementation plan seeks to do is really set out what specific actions that the council will take over the next 3 years to help us reach our net zero target. So it's not just sort of saying, leaving it at the objectives and the aims, it's really spelling out what we're going to do. And what we have committed to as a council is to updating that plan every year. And that's because we recognise that, you know, a bit like what Councillor Billy Lovett said earlier, technologies are changing every year. With the possibility of a Labour government coming in next year, there are lots of things that we could potentially review and hopefully move forward. We also want to make sure that, you know, we want to make sure we continue the conversation with the public. And, you know, again, to really highlight, the climate action plan is not something that is going to be static over the next 7 years. Progress in relation to, I did want to take the opportunity actually to answer one of my colleagues' questions, Councillor Smith, on the climate clock, because we didn't get the time to sort of answer it as part of the questions. But one of the things that I am happy to commit to is installing a climate clock. It's something that the Mayor of London and King Charles has committed to, really demonstrating the need that we need and the urgency that we need the people of Hackney. And I thank my colleague, Councillor Smith, for his work on that. I am conscious of time.
1 minute.
Madam Speaker. Finally, look, what I would say is there's lots to digest in the climate report. It's something that we could all be very proud of. This is an award-winning council, not just in London and not just in the UK, but actually globally. We're being recognised for our efforts. But nothing, no matter what the government does, we're still going to continue. And hopefully, with the Labour government, we're going to be able to intensify our plans and help reach net zero by 2030. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coburn. Do members wish to debate the report? If so, you have up to 5 minutes. Councillor Billy Lovett and Councillor Garbett.
Thank you very much for the
Just
report.
1 minute each.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the report and all the work that's gone into it. I just want to say, as you mentioned about the technology coming in, as you said before in the answer to my question earlier, carbon capture technology and carbon capture and storage technology is not online, and we don't know if it ever will be, and it has to be on a massive scale that we have never seen before. So I don't think we can rely on that unproven future technology. But my question on this report specifically is, in the London Borough Healthy Street Scorecard 2023, Hackney does well in most metrics, and that's really good to see, but comes 18th place for protected cycle lanes. The main roads in Hackney are off-putting, to say the least, without safe cycling infrastructure and protected lanes, only viable for those willing to cycle among buses, cars and lorries. According to the latest data available, Hackney has the worst road collision pedestrian casualties out of any London borough. And Hackney residents want to feel safe to cycle and walk out and about in their borough. Is the implementation plan ambitious enough to sort of turn things around on this? Because as a consequence of not having enough cycle lanes, too many cyclists are on the pavements, making walking even more hazardous for the overly narrow pavements in Hackney, which don't offer enough space for wheelchair users, prams and pedestrians to pass each other.
Thank you. Councillor Garber, I think you had a question as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks again for the report and all the work from officers and across across the council on this. Just to add that we think that the climate clock is pretty gimmicky and a bit of a distraction and just adds to the fatalism that we're all kind of experiencing. So we wouldn't support that. And just a reference to the report. So on page 4, there's speakers kind of training and accountability, which is really great to see. And I just wanted to ask, so does the plan have an ambition to embed accountability for net zero more widely across the organisation? In terms of degree accountability in future, whereby no decision can be taken unless it is net zero compliant. Thank you.
I am going to allow 1 minute for a response because we are very time pressed.
Great. So firstly, on carbon capture storage technology, it doesn't actually exist, and they are using it in Denmark at the moment. And I have to send details across to Councillor Billy Lovett on that. Specifically on cycle lanes, I think thank you for giving me the opportunity to remind everyone here today that Hackney has scored top of the Healthy Streets scorecard in London for our Healthy Streets programme. Specifically in relation to cycle lanes, there are a number of things that we can do to help improve the experience for cyclists and safety for cyclists. It's an ongoing conversation. It's set out in the local implementation plan. It includes our rollout of our low traffic neighbourhoods across the boroughs is one way in which you do that. School streets are another way you do that. Bus lanes are another way you do that. Segregated cycle lanes already do that. That is all set in the plan. And in relation to the accountability question, my colleague Councillor Gordon has done some brilliant work at scrutiny alongside some of the other scrutiny chairs around making sure that there's a net zero review around what we do around our ambitions. And I know that also climate consideration is something that all areas of the council, which is the whole point of the climate action plan, seeks to achieve when making decisions. Thank you.
Thank you to all members for the debate. Thank you, Councillor Coburn, for the report. Can members agree to note the contents of this report? Right there. Yeah, that's noted. That's noted. Thank you. Right, it is noted. I'd like to move on to agenda item 10, the adoption of the council constitution, and I invite Deputy Mayor Bramble, Chair of the Constitution Committee, to introduce the report, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and welcome in your first meeting. And the Constitution, Madam Speaker, is there to set out to help us navigate how business is run, that it's transparent, we are making good decisions, and help explain to our residents what we do. And you, in your first meeting, Madam Speaker, have obviously navigated how the Constitution is, in fact, meant to be. Before I start, I want to thank officers who have worked tirelessly on this piece of work, and also Councillor Gordon, Troughton, Councillor Billy Lubbock, and Councillor Rathbone, who have worked alongside me tirelessly with officers to make sure that the Constitution is better and more accessible. So the work on this began quite a few years ago, actually, before we all got pre-elected and some of us new to the chamber, Madam Speaker, where we had an internal working group looking through the Constitution and doing a tidy up, looking at Councillor Woodley, one of my colleagues that were invested in that piece of work. And we felt, though, although it was a good piece of work, we felt like it didn't go far enough. And as soon as Dawn became the new monitor officer, we made a commitment between us to look at the Constitution on a regular basis. And we had a debate on how could that look like and what should it look like, and speaking to the mayor as well. And then I thought of the idea of having a Constitution committee. And Dawn and Louise, I just want to thank them because they worked to make sure that actually we could do that. Now, people think, well, why do you want another meeting in your life? But it was exactly to speak and show transparency. Because actually, if you want to tidy up the Constitution, if you want to make it more accessible, you have to make sure that the public are able to access and be part of that journey. One of the things that we did do is we used a working group, actually, and engaged in them to talk about the Constitution. And while the majority of the people in the engagement group did know that we had a Constitution, Madam Speaker, you won't be surprised to know, many of them didn't know how to engage in the process. And one of the things that I'm really proud of that we all did collectively was that we have a new section in the Constitution now, if adopted, which is all about resident participation. We pride ourselves on being elected members. We pride ourselves on our integrity. We pride ourselves of being privileged to be representative of this borough. But one of the things that we also pride ourselves on is our accessibility. So it's really important that the Constitution, in the way that we govern, is accessible to each and every resident. That's why the work here is so critical. Some people won't get excited about lots of pages and documents, Madam Speaker, but I do. Why? What seems boring to one person is access to our community that maybe before this work wouldn't have been able to access the work that we're doing. So I commend the work of colleagues and officers, and I really hope it makes more residents come and bring part petitions, ask questions, and bring that critical challenge, but also in a friendly, respectful manner in the way that you have governed the chamber today. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. I presume, Councillor Billy, you'd like to debate the motion?
Actually, no. In in recognition of the Constitution, I would like to move a motion to extend the meeting for half an hour to allow time for motions, etc.
Is this acceptable? Seconded by the motion to accept. It has a cross-party collaboration, so yes, we can extend. Thank you for that. Going back to agenda item 10, do members wish to debate the report? And if so, you have up to 5 minutes. No? Noted, okay. Can members agree that the constitution appended to this report at Appendix 1 be approved to take effect from Monday, the 4th of September 23? And secondly, that the Director of Legal, Democratic and Electoral Service be given delegated authority to make any changes of a typographical or grammatical nature prior to its effective date, and to insert appropriate hyperlinks and bookmarks to aid navigation through the document. Wonderful. Agenda item 11, the Statement of Licensing Policy. I invite Councillor Fajana Thomas, Cabinet Member for Community Safety and Regulatory Services, to introduce the report, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Thanks very much, Madam Speaker. I'll be very brief because I need to bring the Chair of Licensing, Councillor Smith, in. The document before us tonight set out the principles to be applied in considering applications under the Licensing Act 2003. And requested approval for the new statement of licensing policy to be effective from 1st of August 2023 for a maximum of 5 years. The Licensing Act requires that the Council must review the policy at least every 5 years. The current Hackney policy will expire on 31st of this month. It is a statutory requirement to have a policy in place in order to determine applications and make decisions, including licensing subcommittees decisions, while ensuring that we deliver on the Licensing Act 2003 for licensing objectives, which includes prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance, and protection of children from harm. When reviewing the licensing policy, it is required to undergo consultation. Madam Speaker, we conducted the public consultation from May to June, and the outcome report has been presented to the licensing committee. At this point, I thank all the committee members for their work and officers for the work they've done on this policy statement. I'll bring the Chair of Licensing, Councillor Smith, to probably highlight some of the areas in the policy. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Councillor Fajana Thomas, for your strong leadership and expertise in this area. And I reiterate thanks to officers and everybody in the licensing team. This new policy outlined this evening has made minimal changes and aims to balance the need for pubs and clubs to thrive with the needs of people living in the local neighbourhood, whilst ensuring residents nearby are not negatively affected by nightlife. I believe, Madam Speaker, that this policy does deliver a well-managed, inclusive, informed, thriving and safe nighttime economy for all. A sustainable community with neighbourhoods that celebrate our diversity and share in London's prosperity, enabling a good quality life for everyone. The changes I would like to highlight are references to Hackney Nights, the Hackney Nights portal and the venue accreditation scheme, welfare and vulnerability engagement through the health and wellbeing strategy and the climate action plan. There will also be changes to the SPAs and proposals to possibly introduce special consideration areas. A separate piece of work is being undertaken by an independent specialist consultant who will produce their findings and recommendations in the coming months. Madam Speaker, the Hackney Nights portal is a world-beating initiative available to all licensees and gives access to training and guidance on a range of nighttime economy safety issues, welfare and vulnerability, engagement, alcohol awareness, sexual harassment, domestic violence, etc. The list goes on. Fantastic initiative. The Nighttime Economy Safety Charter also aims to make everyone feel safe, welcome and included in our nighttime economy. On the reference to the climate action plan and the policy, Madam Speaker, this will enable us to be mindful of the steps that need to be taken by businesses,
1 minute.
local residents and the council to help respond to climate change, reduce our impact on the climate and secure benefits for local people like cleaner and safer streets, cleaner air and greener neighbourhoods. Madam Speaker, I particularly welcome mention in the policy in relation to discouraging the use of single-use plastics, such as cups and receptacles, cutlery and containers with guidance from licence.
If you could draw your conclusions.
Madam Speaker, I would like to recommend this new licensing policy to the Chamber and ask that members agree to adopt what I believe is an excellent, fair and robust policy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do any other members wish to debate the report? And if so, you will have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm hugely proud of the work we've done in licensing and all the officers, the great officers that work in this area. I've been really impressed with the council's approach to the nighttime economy. The Hackney Nights portal is absolutely exemplar, and the use of the late night levy to bring medics into the nighttime economy, I think, has had a huge positive impact. And I know that I did bring this up at licensing committee, but I have to mention again that although the independent consultants will look at where the SPAs are, I'm disappointed that council is sticking to the special policy area approach within this policy when it doesn't have any evidence of their actual impact. And to preempt a response, in terms of the data raised by the Mayor earlier, this wasn't mentioned at the committee last week. We haven't had a chance to scrutinise that, and you can't see a kind of cause and effect between whether it's this policy or other things that we're doing within the nighttime economy. Because I'm really assured by the decisions that councillors make at the subcommittee hearings. Obviously, we do have a completely different political approach here than you did kind of 10 years ago when this approach was brought in. So I do still just want to make the point that although I support the policy and a lot of the stuff that the licensing kind of officers are doing, I'm slightly uneasy about supporting a special policy area approach that I haven't seen the evidence.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Meg Glanville, would you like to debate the report?
It's 30 seconds, hopefully, or less. I did just want to put on public record that since we last had this debate around licensing in 2017-18, we had 1,366 active premises licenses in the borough. In 21-22, we had 1,531. So far from closing Hackney to business, far from being anti-nighttime economy, all of the things that both Councillor Joanna Thomas and Councillor Smith, and to an extent Councillor Garvey have said, is we're pro the nighttime economy and a well-regulated, well-structured licensing policy, and that's what we have this evening.
Councillor Rice, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to put on record my support for the SPA policy and the continuation of that. Residents in Shoreditch fought very hard for the SPA to make sure that they could enjoy Shoreditch as a residential area, whilst we continue to have Shoreditch as a nighttime economy. And frankly, I am horrified, and I know that they would be horrified by any suggestion that we get rid of SPAs in the borough of Hackney, because it has improved the life of residents in the Hoxton and Shoreditch ward, and we absolutely need to continue this. And we need to build on it, absolutely, but it is really important that we keep the SPAs in. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Joanna Thomas.
Thanks very much. Just to respond to the SPA questions. What has happened in the past, Councillor Gabbard and Councillor Reyes, the regime of the licensing policy includes special policy areas, but legislation have changed. There are now two separate regimes. At the moment, the council, it is our manifesto commitment to actually review the SPA in Hackney. At the moment, we've commissioned an independent consultant that are going through the SPA, the cumulative impact assessment at the moment, and that work will finish at the end of August. So there's going to be a different paper, not necessarily to the council, will go to cabinet. It's not council matter, it's going to be cabinet decision that will go to cabinet around the special policy area in Hackney. What we are adding, we're not saying there won't be special policy area, but there's going to be special consideration areas. Those are emerging areas where they don't have special policy area. They're not special policy area at the moment, but they're emerging areas where we can have negative impact, cumulative impact around licensing premises. I hope
Thank you
that
very
clears
much.
the question. Thanks very much, Madam Speaker.
Can members agree to approve the statement of licensing policy effective from the 1st of August 2023 for a maximum period of 5 years, and delegate authority to the Group Director of Climate, Homes and Economy to make any changes to the policy as appropriate? Changes will be reported to the Licensing Committee for noting. Thank you. Agenda item 12, the members' allowance scheme. We have before us a report and appendix which details the members' allowance scheme for 2023-24. Do members wish to debate the report? And if so, you have up to 5 minutes. Can members agree the report and the Members' Allowance Scheme 23-24 attached as Appendix 1? Thank you. Agenda item 13. Can I invite Mayor Glanville to introduce the report? You have up to 5 minutes to do so. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm going to split it into 13 and then 13.1, if that's okay, Madam Speaker. So as Chair, before I introduce the report on the new appointments, I did just want to thank Mark Carroll for his service at the Council and to the people of Hackney during his time as Chief Executive. I've obviously issued a statement. I'm not going to repeat it here now for time, but I especially valued his leadership in response to Child Q, and it was invaluable. As Chair of the Appointments Committee, I'm delighted to recommend the appointments of Doreen Carter-MacDonald, Jackie Moylan and Louise Humphreys as the interim Chief Executive, Group Director Finance and Monitoring Officer roles. It's been a vigorous cross-party process involving all political groups, the Cabinet, frontline councillors and scrutiny, and I thank everyone that served on the two appointments committees. Between them, I think there's over 40 years of experience working in Hackney, and the fact that we're appointing people from our own is a real Hackney success story we can celebrate tonight. And I think there is also something about having, and Councillor Steinberg almost stole my thunder earlier on, but having all 3 statutory posts now filled by women for the first time is something that we can be incredibly proud of. So congratulations, I hope, to Dawn, Jackie and Louise.
Do members wish to debate the report? Councillor Binny Lovett.
Just very briefly, I would like to add the Green Group's thanks to Ian Williams for his time in Hackney and for steering the council through a number of challenging times and being a fantastic leader. It's been a pleasure working with you, and we wish you all the best in Liverpool. And I'm sure we'll have another chance to say that to you as well. We'd also like to thank Mark Carroll for his time as Chief Exec. Both Mark and Ian have been incredibly supportive in helping get us up to speed when we were elected last year, and we appreciate that this is a time of change for everyone working in the council, so it's fantastic that we have Jackie Moylan and Dawn Carter-MacDonald taking on interim senior roles, leadership roles, and we look forward to working with both of you. Thank you.
Yes, happy to. Yeah. So should we do that now? Yeah. Councillor Steinberger. Thank you. Thank you. More cross-party agreement this evening. Fantastic. You wanted to speak to 13.1, or do you want to? Okay, so can we move directly to the recommendations? Okay, can we agree the appointments of chief officers and the temporary arrangements set out in the recommendations as paragraph 2 of the report? After 16 years of service, including over 14 years as our S151 officer, the Acting Chief Executive and Group Director of Finance and Corporate Resources, Ian Williams, will be leaving the Council on 31st of July. I'm sure that I speak for us all in thanking Ian for his enormous contribution to the borough during that time, and I now invite Mayor Glanville to offer a vote of thanks.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I know Ian's going to hate this, but we're going to do it anyway. And we're going to do it as quickly as we can, as I'm sure he will understand. But before talking about Ian, I did just want to acknowledge that Polly Chirk, Alec Richards and Andy Wells have left us since May. Significant officers that have given much of their professional career to Hackney, and we really wish them well. And there's something about their journey and Ian's about how we don't just grow and retain our own, we're feeding that across local government in London and beyond. As you said, Madam Speaker, Ian has given so much to our 16 years at Hackney and 14 years as Group Director for Finance and Corporate Resources and as the Statutory Chief Finance Officer. He's also brilliantly stepped into the role of Acting Chief Executive on a number of occasions, including in the past few months. I think we'd all agree that Ian has guided us soundly through an ever tougher financial environment, which has seen Hackney focus on preserving frontline services through this era of austerity, when money councils had to make severe cuts to services to survive. Ian steered us through those tumultuous waters, including the global pandemic, the criminal cyber attack most recently. And I think one of his greatest strengths is remaining calm and focused throughout. He's also allowed us as a political administration to invest in the future and meet those ambitions that we set out for the electorate. Without his work, we would never have delivered projects like DSF or Britannia. And he's also supported innovation, whether it's in the Pensions Committee around divestment or indeed the journey around Hackney Light and Power that Councillor Coburn has talked about. I think Ian, like all the best officers and indeed members, has never lost sight of the human element of working on behalf of the borough we all love. When it could have been so much simpler to propose salami slicing cuts, he knew that that wouldn't be what we would want as an administration or that was best for our residents, and especially the most vulnerable. He has worked tirelessly alongside Councillor Chapman, as well as former leads in Councillors Cardwell, Lloyd, Taylor and Renison, being a strong ally to them as they navigated tricky financial reports and taking us through the last 14 years. It would have also been very easy to try and clip our wings or sneer at our ambition, and Ian has never done that, giving solid and impartial advice, not just to the administration, but also informing alternative budgets from the parties opposite. That reputation and approach is why I think Liverpool has chosen you to take them on the next stage of their journey. And I know that you're as keen to play a critical part in that work and their journey around social justice in your new role. I don't think all of them share your love of Everton. I think it's probably 50-50, but you've got the job anyway, which I think is really important. And I know that it's going to be an enormous professional challenge, but you're very much looking forward to that appointment. I think we'll save the jokes and the warm anecdotes until later in the week, but a couple of things I did want to highlight. Ian is a resident. When we talk about elected members, we hold that absolutely dear, that we bring that residential perspective. But Ian isn't just a resident, his family are resident in the borough. And I think during COVID, that made him an enormous strength in the senior leadership of the council, that when he was out walking to the town hall or running as he always does in Victoria Park, he could see what it felt like on the streets of Hackney and bring that into the senior officer leadership of the council. I was joking earlier, and you found the tie. The shirt is done up, but you always bring your best self to everything that you do. And I think you've been absolutely critical to the respect that audit committee and scrutiny have within the budget process. Liverpool is absolutely lucky to have you, Ian, as their new corporate director of finance and resources. You'll be an absolute tremendous asset. We're going to miss you greatly. This is part of a long goodbye during the course of this week. And I really thank you, Madam Speaker, and I hope that we will all endorse that vote of thanks that you proposed.
We can stand, but there's a couple more people to speak as well. I've been informed that councillors Lynch and Chapman want to speak, and then I think you'd like to say a few words as well, yes. So Councillor Lynch, please.
Hi, I just wanted to speak in my role as Chair of Audit, and I think one of the things that Ian and his team have done is opened up, particularly to myself and to other Audit Committee members, the link between what we do in the council and what that means for our residents. And just today I participated in the peer review, and I was so proud to talk about how Ian and his team and the internal audit team had done that in terms of making audit interesting and brings it alive. On a just very much, you know, actually Mayor Graham was actually said most of it, but I think the biggest thing about Ian is that he's so has such integrity and such professionalism. So I don't know how many times I've heard indeed at times from Ian around stuff. He's shown such leadership, and I think what Mayor Glanville was saying around Ian is that Ian gets Hackney, it matters to him, and I think that was really evident in COVID, and I think it's evident in everything that we do. He's a resident here, his family live here, and I guess just to leave it, you know, I personally will miss Ian. I'm already putting a little shrine of Our Lady and some Camden Health and an Edgerton scarf. Hopefully, I'll be able to put one in the entrance of the town hall. But yeah, I just want to say all the best in Liverpool. It's a great city. They're going to absolutely love you. And I know myself and Councillor Chapman and a few others will probably pick up for some beers in October when we're there for a particular party conference in October. But all the best, Ian. Take care.
Thank you, Councillor Lynch. Sorry, can I call Councillor Lynch? Thank you very much. Councillor Chapman, sorry.
Yeah, I first came across Ian Williams in December 2009 when I actually sat on his interview panel. I don't know if there's anyone else left in the chamber in that same meeting. And we were delighted on that occasion to appoint, which is by a significant amount, the youngest chief officer anywhere in London at that time. So, any sort of pipsqueak of doubt some of us might have thought about that point of appointing, because of his extreme youth, was soon allayed, and he began his excellent service in Hackney. Now, I've worked with him a number of roles as scrutiny chair, as chair of pensions, and recently as cabinet member. And all of those, I know he's given support to me, and I know to members generally, including members of the opposition, putting their budgets together and other things. And I think he's given us all the same high levels of service. And I've always regarded it as giving expert, professional and lucid guidance, and also thanking him for his patience, which was essential. One of Ian's great strengths, I must mention this, is building a good team. And he leaves behind him Jackie Moylan, who we've just appointed as our interim section 151 officer, so congratulations to Jackie. And importantly, behind her, there is a really strong team as well. I won't name them all, but there's a strong team. And I think between them all, they will continue to provide the service to us that's seen us been able to maintain a sound and stable financial position over a very long time in very difficult circumstances. So thank you for that, Ian, and very best wishes in your new job in Liverpool.
Councillor Steinberger.
Today is a very, should we say, a very sad moment. As I was coming with Councillor Lisser to the chambers, Councillor Lisser actually prepared his own little speech. So I'll first give over a little bit what Councillor Lisser had to say, and then I will speak a little bit about my own little personal, little knowing. Ian is very like, the more you know him, the more you get to know him. It's like a puzzle. It's never ending. So, you think you know Ian, then you get to know even more quality. So, Rob mentioned, I first talk, I'll say a minute what Rob mentioned, then I'll go back to Councillor Lisser. Rob mentioned you left behind a very good team. This reminds me of a football team that the manager is gone. So we may have a very good football team, we have a very good team, but the manager is gone. Now I'm sure the new manager is going to do very well, but this manager is still left behind all the trophies. We've won all the trophies with this manager, and Jackie, you're going to have to perform because we need more trophies. So I'm going to start off with Councillor Lisser was just saying that this week is a week of mourning in the Jewish calendar, and worst of all is, at the same time, Ian is leaving the town hall after so many years. So Councillor Lisser just wanted to basically thank you, Ian, for all that you've done in the borough. Now, I also prepared a little bit, and I don't normally like to read from the paper, but this is, for me, this is a very, very difficult to talk, because it's not about, everybody's mentioning your qualities, and I think you're all rounder. Your qualities are just there from top, from the beginning to the end. So whenever we had to do something in the opposition, whenever we had to speak to somebody, you always gave us your time, you always had ears to listen. I think we've spoken nearly all the hours of the clock, starting from 7 o'clock in the morning, probably finishing 1 o'clock at night. And I remember a few times the budgets in the last minute were coming through 12 o'clock at night. And that's just a few small little things which have been done. But I must say the correctness, the work, the devotion, it's actually, I can't speak just on behalf of my group. I think it's the whole Hackney. We Hackney are losing something which we had for, I think it's 16 years. And yes, we've definitely got good officers here and everything, but it's still, until now we had Jackie and Ian, but we're not going to have now Jackie and Ian, we're just going to have Ian. So whilst Jackie's going to take over and everything's going to be fine, hopefully, but again, we're missing the Ian here. So I just wanted to say it's a very emotional time for us, and I just really, really thank you for all the work you've done for the Conservative group, for the residents, for Hackney. I just want to finish off by saying, I'm just thinking to myself, I think I've seen you in every part of Hackney. I saw you once running in Homerton, once I saw you down in Richmond Road, another time in Stamford Hill. Basically, you have Hackney all over you. So it's going to be, I still think that you're going to end up back in Hackney. I don't know, by mistake you're going to end up, or it's just you're going to come back because this is your home. So I want to wish you well, and I hope that you do very good in your new job and everything. I know we don't run the council, but I'm sure I can speak on behalf of them also. The door's always open for you. So thank you for everything.
Thank you.
And good luck for everything you do.
Thank you, Councillor Steinberger. Well, I will now, with no emotion at all, hand over to the man himself to say a few words.
Great stuff, and thank you everyone really for those really kind words. I'm genuinely touched and it's really appreciated. I've thoroughly enjoyed my time in Hackney. It's a unique and very special place that has not just been a great place to work for me, but it's been my home. The opportunities I've had here, I've been fortunate to work on, have been unprecedented and have shaped and developed me. I'm very grateful for the trust placed in me by all parts of this chamber. I've been very fortunate to work with so many colleagues and fantastic local democratic leaders and pioneers. You've never been afraid to make the often hard choices, ultimately putting the benefit of residents at the very front of your thinking. The other item on the report here tonight recommended the appointment of 3 fantastic female leaders to the statutory roles of the Golden Triangle, as Dawn and I call it. And together with my other CLT colleagues here tonight, I know that you'll continue to be served really excellently in the years ahead. Thank you very much.
I think you've earned another well-earned glass of water. So, due to time constraints, we won't be able to debate both motions this evening, but I would like to try and get through at least the first one. And a reminder that any motion that's not been debated shall stand referred to the next ordinary meeting of full council. Can I please ask all those making speeches and contributions to be succinct, especially as we're now at 10:15. And we will move on to the first motion, motion 1, Hackney, a borough of sanctuary. Following the publication of the agenda, an amended version of this motion was received, which was included in the supplementary agenda. I understand from the proposer and seconder of the motion, which I will confirm with them in a moment, that they were prepared to accept 2 of those proposed amendments, and therefore in the papers circulated this evening, you have the wording of the motion to be put to council following that agreement. There were, as I understand it, some further proposed amendments that were not agreed, and we'll come to those later. Councillor Conway and Councillor Walker, please raise your hand to indicate that you are proposing and seconding the motion. Thank you. Councillor Walker, can you confirm whether you wish to speak after Councillor Conway?
I do, Madam Speaker.
Yep. Councillor Conway, please can you introduce your motion, and you have up to 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The timing of our discussion on Hackney becoming a borough of sanctuary couldn't be more crucial because of the illegal immigration bill gaining royal assent and becoming law just days ago. This act is a source of deep concern, and it threatens to strip away fundamental rights and breach various international conventions. Its impact is particularly severe on minority ethnic groups, LGBTQI+ refugees, pregnant individuals, and poses grave risk to public health and asylum seekers. This legislation is deeply worrying as it undermines protections for victims of modern slavery, giving traffickers increased powers over their victims. It unjustly strips away fundamental rights from people based solely on how they arrived in the UK and compels the state to breach its obligations. The consequences of this legislation will lead to increased economic vulnerability, destitution, and homelessness among those affected. The government's track record reveals a distressing indifference to those seeking safety and a better life in the UK and the international laws designed to protect them. Let me assure you, Madam Speaker, that this does not represent what we in Hackney stand for. Our community values compassion, diversity, and inclusivity, and will unite to protect the safety and well-being of all our fellow human beings. We must therefore vehemently oppose the government's plans to increase the number of asylum seekers placed in already crowded hotel bedrooms, posing a significant public health risk and putting asylum seekers at even greater jeopardy. The sentiments of opposition to the Illegal Migration Act are widely shared, igniting a mobilisation across London. This was evident during the Greater London Authority's Emergency Summit in May, where over 200 attendees, including local authorities, civil society organisations and statutory bodies, came together to address the anticipated consequences and explore measures to mitigate its impact. This gathering serves as a resounding testament and an urgent call for action fueled by a collective desire to safeguard the rights and well-being of those affected by the Act. I am committed to championing migrant rights and wholeheartedly celebrate our borough's diversity, the same diversity that we see reflected in the residents who make up our borough and the Chamber this evening. I also believe that central to celebrating our borough's diversity is the investment in services that ensure migrants can access their rights and entitlements. This motion proposes to build on our strong track record of supporting migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers here in Hackney. It aims to expand our partnerships with local and regional migrant and refugee groups, sending a clear message that Hackney is a borough of sanctuary and that migrants are welcome here.
Thank you, Councillor Conway. Councillor Walker, would you like to follow up?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Supporting this motion is an important statement of who we are and want to continue to be in Hackney. The hostile environment created by the cruel policies of this Tory government that actively slam the door in the face of those seeking refuge in a home would be to betray our deepest values. Refugees and immigrant communities have always played an important part of our shared heritage and culture as a borough. The vibrant wards that we all represent are proudly home to a diverse group of communities. We have welcomed refugees from Vietnam, Turkey, Iraq, Iran, Syria, Ukraine. All of these communities and many others have shaped so much of the Hackney we all know and makes this borough a place of welcome and sanctuary. We should also recognise the huge economic skills and social contribution refugees and migrant communities bring across our public sector institutions, local business, the third sector, schools, hospitals, and to every neighbourhood in our borough. I'm proud that as a council, through the work led by our Cabinet Lead for Equalities and Mayor Glanville, we have always championed the rights and protection of refugees and migrants that come and make Hackney their home. At a time when government is failing to protect the most vulnerable people in our communities, it is only right that local government is taking the lead, and we are demonstrating this as a council. Actions include the work we have done on Windrush, calling for justice for those who have been so cruelly treated by the Home Office and the government's mishandling of the Windrush compensation scheme. We responded and opened our doors to Syrian, Afghan, and Ukraine refugees, with Hackney residents welcoming families into their homes. Just last month, the council hosted a Ukrainian season in my own ward, celebrating the contribution they are bringing to our communities. And I should mention the fantastic work of the groups such as the Beauvoir Welcomes Refugees, like so many across our borough, have provided local support and action for refugee communities. Finally, Madam Speaker, our response is a test of our humanity and values, seeing ourselves in one another. The late Archbishop Desmond Tutu of South Africa often spoke of the African philosophy of Ubuntu, which he describes as meaning, I am because you are because we are. Let us take these words with us and support this motion as we reaffirm our commitment to be a borough of sanctuary and to ensure that we all provide the welcome, hope, compassion and dignity to those who seek to make Hackney their home. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. As mentioned, we also have some further amendments proposed by Councillor Binny Lubbock and seconded by Councillor Garbett, which members can see in the papers circulated this evening. Councillor Binny Lubbock and Councillor Garbett, please can you raise your hands to confirm that you wish to propose and second these amendments? Thank you. Councillor Binny Lubbock, do you wish to explain your proposed amendments? You have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to this motion, which I think is really, really good. And as you say, it's very timely with the illegal immigration bill becoming law. I'd just like to start on a personal point. My housemate is a Syrian refugee who arrived irregularly via the Calais camps. And I'm so very proud of his bravery in telling his story as an actor in theatre. And now he also proudly has a picture of himself with Speaker Anya Sizer on his mantelpiece as he performed the citizenship ceremony early this year. I just wanted to raise that this is a great motion, but there's a couple of things we would like to have seen in it, including the importance of working with other local authorities to share best practice, working with people who have that lived experience that will help better develop support services, committing to not working with businesses that profit from the hostile environment that we've already pointed out is really damaging to our communities and individuals within it. And that's an action of solidarity that we can take. Hackney must be clear that it believes that the illegal immigration bill is an attack on human rights and of some of the most vulnerable in our society. And I just want to read that one line from our amendment, which is that we should continue to put pressure on the government to repeal the illegal immigration, repeal that immigration legislation that is at variance with the UK's obligation under international human rights and refugee law by refusing to allow asylum claims in the UK for anyone who arrives irregularly. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask if members wish to debate the amendments or move directly to a vote on these amendments? Move to a vote. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, I thought it would be really helpful to respond to some of the amendments, proposed amendments, and I'll try and be as quick as I possibly can. So we don't disagree with the spirit of your amendments, but there are some of the amendments which are already enshrined in council policy, including the Windrush motion that we passed in 2018. What I didn't want to do was just repeat them for the sake of having a discussion on things that we've already passed as a council. On working with businesses, that's something that I will commit to taking away. On the amendment on having a champion, it would be downgrading the position from a full cabinet position, and that's why I haven't accepted that. And there are other reasons that I'm not going to have time to go through, but where it has been helpful to accept your motion, your amendments, I have done so.
Thank you. I think Councillor Garbett, you have a right to reply now. No. Oh, to right second, sorry. Okay. Would you like to reply, Councillor Binny Lubbock?
No, I'm happy for it to go to a vote.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, it's late in the day. We can now move to the vote on the amendments. Unless any members have an objection, I intend to deal with all the proposed amendments en masse. So those in favour? Those against? So that's carried, thank you. Any abstentions? No. So we will now proceed to the consideration of the substantive motion. Do members wish to debate the motion? I understand that Councillor Carroll, we've spoken already. So the motion will now be put to the vote. Members are to vote for, against, or abstain. So those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? I declare the motion carried. Mayor Glenville would like to say something
Just
briefly.
if you could indulge me, I did just want to acknowledge that former councillor Rosemary Sales has sat with us the entire evening
Yes.
because she's representing the Hackney Migrant Centre, who wholeheartedly support the Borough of
Oh.
Sanctuary motion. And in the curtailment of debate, we didn't get to mention and acknowledge her presence. And obviously, they were a Mayor's Civic Award winner earlier in the civic cycle.
Thank you, and well said, well pointed out. We have now come to the end of the agenda, and I declare this meeting closed. Oh. Absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wholeheartedly welcome the motion that we have just passed. I just wanted to say, in light of the fact that the motion that has dropped from the last council meeting, can we just be assured that it will be debated in full at the next opportunity, which is
It
another
will
2
be
months?
prioritised, absolutely, and thank you for your patience with that. So I now declare the meeting has come to an end, and you are all very welcome to join me in the Bridgetown Bar.
If you're able, please be upstanding for the Speaker of the London Borough of Hackney, Councillor Anya Sizer.